Test. Well, since I have all my members with me tonight, I'm going to get going. I'd like to call to order the Historic Preservation Commission for February 6 at 6 p.m. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. If any member has any reason to believe this meeting is being held in violation of this act, they should state so at this time. Hearing it be all quiet, I will ask you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll ask the secretary to do the roll call.
Ms. Campbell? Here. Mr. Cogswell?
Here.
Ms. Pisagno?
Here.
Ms. Wilson-Stridick?
Here.
Mr. Testa?
He stepped out for a minute, but he is here.
Thank you. Mr. Stevenson?
Here.
Mr. Becker?
Here.
Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Resolutions, 409 Elmira LLC, 409 Elmira, Block 1060, Lot 33, Resolution number 2023-02, Formica at 1125 New York Avenue, Block 1117, Lots 22, 23, and 24, Resolution 2023-03, Mahalo Cape May LLC, 1033 Beach Avenue, Blocks 1101, Lot 1, Resolution 2023-04, Smith, 925 Columbia Avenue, Block 1090, Lot 40.01, Resolution 2023-05, and Swain at 1211 Lafayette Street, Block 1061, Lot 84.01, Resolution 2023-06. Is there a motion to approve the resolutions?
So moved.
Moved by Corbin, seconded by
Second.
Janice. Any discussion on the resolutions? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Or did you want to do a roll call? Okay, let's do a roll call.
Ms. Campbell?
Abstain.
Mr. Cogswell? Ms. Pisagno?
Abstain.
Ms. Wilson-Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
You all received the minutes from January 9th in your package and emails. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
I made a typo. I made a correction of a typo of a name.
Okay. I don't think we can.
Yeah. I don't think
Okay.
that matters.
Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
Move to accept the minutes as corrected.
By Mr. Testa, seconded by
Second.
Corbin. All in favor? Please take the roll call.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Ms. Campbell?
Abstain.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno?
Abstain.
Ms. Wilson-Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes. Thank you. Applications approved by the review committee. You have received this long list of names, and you've had a chance to review them. Will there be any recusals on any of these?
There'll be an abstention. There'll be an abstention. You
Okay,
can
okay.
get me when you go through the roll call.
All righty. We're ready for that. Roll call vote then for approval of the applications.
Do we have a motion and a second?
You want to,
I'm going to abstain, so
Okay.
I saw one of them, so.
Jack?
We approve them.
Moved by Corbin, seconded by?
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Mr. Stevenson. Ms. Campbell?
Abstain.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno?
Abstain.
Ms. Wilson-Stridick?
Yes, although I abstain on my own application. 24 Congress.
Mr. Testa?
Yes for all with the exception of abstention on Stridick.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Thank you.
New business, the City of Cape May, Block 1106, Block 1185. And gentlemen, I'll ask you to turn your microphones on down here. And when you get seated, we'll ask you for all names. Pronounce them as clearly as you can if they need help with spelling, so Judy can get them in the record back here.
Yep. Yes, yes.
You want to start, Mayor?
Good evening, everyone. It's good to be back. Before we get started, I do want to just thank all of you, all volunteers, and some of our new appointees. I think actually all on my left, but reappointed. So thank you all very much. And while I'm here, I do want to just compliment all of you. We know it's a thankless job, but HPC really makes Cape May what it is today. It would not be the same without you. So I just want to say that from the beginning, and thank you all very much. With us this evening, of course, we have the seawall application, which we'll kind of let the professionals get right into. But just as everyone kind of knows, the first two sections, I think you have section 1, 3 in this non-colored
Zach, can I just
Copy.
get the other names here before we really get going?
Yes, Richard Maloney, Maloney, with Colliers Engineering and Design.
And Ian Walzak, last name Walczak. Colliers Engineering Design, yep.
Okay. I'm sorry, Zach. Please continue.
You think I would have learned that by now, but I still haven't. So the first renderings are just, the black and white renderings are these. You have sections 1 and 3 at least. You may have a third section as well. But I just wanted you to note that's kind of where these gentlemen came and took over. And I think, Tom, you were at a couple of them. I know Warren was at a couple of these discussions that we had with the State Historic Preservation Office, our local HPC, represented by, I know it was at least Tom. John, were you there for any of those? I can't. Okay. And then, and Warren. And one of the big issues that we had from SHPO in regards to this design was the block wall facade, what was going to go on the facade. And now, this was both the Army Corps project and any extension that the city would do. So these gentlemen from Colliers kind of took over from that point, but one of the main issues that SHPO had was that face of the wall. What would it be? Of course, we don't want it to be just plain cement. We don't want it to be cinder block. There was an expense issue when it came to, are we going to cover it with brick, which might not have even been what HPC would have liked, but that was going to be a major expense, as well as the railing, which of course that railing would expand the entirety of the promenade, starting from where it ends, at basically in front of Kiwanis Club, going to the Army Corps project at Wilmington. So that's kind of an introduction of where we are coming from, and then Colliers taking over and some of the designs that they came up with. So with that, I'll let you gentlemen take it from there.
We'll both introduce ourselves. I'm going to pass it over to Ian. He's been the engineer day-to-day that worked through this for the last 6 months with Lou and the mayor, and he's got a very good handle on anything. We'll work with the Army Corps, so I'll let him walk you through and present the project.
So as Mayor Zach said, this is where we came from, right? Kind of a block gray hard structure. And I know the mayor and the city was really adamant of going a different direction. This is a historic city, it's beautiful. I grew up in a beach town, I get it. You want to be able to go to the beach and feel like you're at the beach and not looking at a wall. So what we really wanted to do was, and if you look at the second package we handed out, is hide the wall as best we could. The approach we took was to have natural building aspects of it. So basically introducing a vegetated sand slope in front, almost like a dune, that will hide the majority of the gray structure itself. And then we also wanted to pay homage to the original 1905 promenade, the timber promenade that ran along the east end. So that, to allow people to, continue the promenade all the way down. So if you look at this rendering, this one right here, you can see Beach Avenue laid out right there. And this is a cross-section illustration. You can see the existing timber bulkhead. What we propose is to replace it with a timber bulkhead as well, to, again, not change the aesthetics of that timber bulkhead. Then have a vegetated sand slope coming up to the seawall itself. And if you can see from the rendering, there's the existing seawall underneath, which is armor stone, gravel, basically. And we would go on top of that. But you wouldn't be able to see that section of seawall because of the vegetated slope. When you're looking at, and if you want to go through to either the first page basically is the existing, just an existing photo of what you have on Beach Avenue right now. And then if you turn, that is the look.
And Ian, just to notice on the first one, you all know this, but just to remind yourselves of what the timber bulkhead looks like currently. He said no changes, but a lot of that timber bulkhead looks really bad, so we would say, well,
That timber bulkhead is over 100 years old.
right.
That's correct, yeah. So we would be replacing the timber bulkhead, but replacing it with timber.
It's amazing there's that much of it still there.
It is, yeah. So the second page is a rendering of the proposed condition. As you can see, the timber bulkhead is new, replaced, and then all you really see is vegetated dune, though. So when you're from the street end or parking on Beach Avenue or walking down Beach Avenue, you're not seeing a hardened gray structure. It's pleasant. It feels like you're at the beach.
And Ian, if I could add to that, just the trees that you see in the background are the real trees that exist from the photograph. So that gives you a little bit of perspective as to how high it actually is. It's still well below a lot of the vegetation that exists.
Correct. And then if you turn, this is a different view of the existing. And the one after is proposed. Again, from the street end, it hides that gray structure and it really incorporates these natural-like solutions, which will stop erosion and things of that nature. And also, it's going to provide the protection that the city needs with that hardened concrete core in the middle of it. But you won't just be able to see it.
And just to note on the vegetation, kind of going a little bit beyond HPC, but we would look for, the computer-generated model is a little different. We would look for a little bit more variety within the dune grasses and things like that. Especially if anything got disease or whatever, one variety wouldn't be wiped out. You'd still have different.
Yeah, and also incorporating pollinators so you can attract the monarch butterflies and things of that nature.
If you could just go back to, just emphasize the timber bulkhead. I mean, you could build that wall to many materials, but the timber seemed to be the most authentic, paid homage to the history that's here.
No, the
outside the salt zone.
the timber's great. I mean,
It lasts another
it's exactly the
45
right,
years.
exactly the right material. And then also, I see your illustration here shows, it looks like the beginning of dune grass plantings.
Yes.
And that's terrific because some of us were involved in 1991 when the dune grass was planted after the first restoration. One thing that's important, and this is great at the go-in, but one thing that's important is the maintenance of the vegetation so that we have something that really doesn't obscure the wall as opposed to what we have now, which is varying in height, and some of those heights go up to 25 and 30 feet. So one of the issues that is an issue that I think people are going to want to discuss is how much blockage of traditional views the seawall will involve. And it seems to me from what you've done, the amount of blockage by the seawall itself is pretty minimal.
That is correct.
So that's good as far, I'm a resident of the neighborhood, as you know, we've met. And we've, you know, we're interested in protection because we need to be protected. It's the primary thing that the seawall and the dunes ought to do. So I think this proposal here does a good job of bringing things up for the protection purposes. If you would just repeat to me, though, the differences between the height that you reach here now and the 1962-63 wrap seawall that exists now.
Yes, that's fine. So the existing seawall varies between about elevation 8.5 to 9.5, depending on where you're at. And the road, for instance, is around 5.5, so that elevation. Where we're proposing is to go up, the protection level will be elevation 15. But that being said, the whole wall is not going to be elevation 15. We're not going to, like, as you said, the Army Corps project in the corner, that original design was just a block wall. It is very good at protecting, but not the best aesthetics.
No, it's terrible, in
So
fact.
what we've decided to turn and go is a two-level design where the main bulk of the seawall is only at 12.5. So that's what you're seeing that's hidden behind that vegetated dune slope is at 12.5. And then you come up with a cantilevered wall.
So we have a main floor, if you will,
Yeah.
at about 12,
Yes.
which puts it a couple of feet above the existing wrap bulkhead, and then another 3 feet of bringing the top to 15.
Yes, and if you look at this, the first photo we have right there, you can see the wall. And actually, there might be a better rendering. Let me,
I'm looking from this
I
side.
would go with, honestly, if you turn to the second to last rendering.
Second to the last.
Yeah, so this is, and I'll get back to this and explain, but the city also wanted to make sure that this promenade and access to the beach was able to have access to everyone, so we were really want to implement ADA ramps at every street end to allow people, not only with disabilities, but just people who have difficulty climbing stairs to be able to walk and enjoy the promenade and get access to the beach on the east end over there. But as you can see from this rendering on the left side of it, there's that seating wall. So the back end goes up to elevation 15, but the seating surface itself is roughly 20 inches from the main promenade walk, which is an optimal seating height. So in theory, the whole length of the wall, you'll be able to sit and bird watch and enjoy the ocean or the historic buildings and
Sure.
structures.
Understood. I think it's a clever way to build this all in. There will be concerns from the public, if not just from this commission, about the overall height and the views, because people will want to have those views protected, particularly because insofar as the perspective of the HPC is concerned, the 1500 block of beach is a historic block based on the old East Cape May Real Estate Development Company. So you know that those structures, along with most of them, are traditional structures where the first floors are public floors and bedrooms are elevated up above. The newer structures where people have built to height have their public floors on the second floor with bedrooms and non-essential things. So it's really important to preserve the views seaward, at least from the standpoint of the residents.
Yeah.
It's also important to preserve the view of the historic structures from Beach Avenue and from the Strand. So as you're walking along the beach strand and you're looking, you don't want to have a wall that's so high that people who are walking on the beach can't see the houses. And I think largely this accomplishes that. So there will be, but I can say that from the perspective of the commission in terms of designs and how this fits with the neighborhood, I think it does a good job. I think there'll be some concerns from the neighborhood about overall height. And I think there'll be some concerns from the neighborhood about the usage, because as I think we're all aware, the commercial zone in Cape May stops at Pittsburgh Avenue. It's C3. And in 1905, when the bulkhead was first put in, the promenade was first put in, there was no zoning in Cape May. There was no residential neighborhood in Cape May. And there was a new hotel. The former Admiral Hotel was zoned C3 as part of the existing beach commercial operation, but that's now changed. So you're dealing with R1A at Pittsburgh to Baltimore, and then you're dealing with RS. So there are residential concerns about the use of the promenade, and particularly
Jim,
not.
I would really like to let them,
I'm sorry, I was trying to address the design.
before we land on.
Do the whole question? I'm not landing, I'm
Yeah,
just trying
I
to.
know. But I think they're really just getting started with what they want to.
I'm sorry, guys,
No,
you should go, you should go on. I just wanted you to hear,
That's
we've
why-
talked about this
Yeah.
before, and this is now a public hearing, but I'm happy to see what you've produced
And the
overall.
points you make are valid. I mean, if I lived and owned a home right there, I would be very
Yeah.
curious of this, this wall. right
This is a vast improvement over anything we've seen
It's
before.
drastically going to improve the protection of the city, and that's where, and what we're trying to do is make it as aesthetically pleasing as possible.
And I apologize for monopolizing your presentation.
No,
Please, Scott.
this is the forum for it, correct?
Ian, just on one of the points that was made, how far back is the seating wall from the street approximately? I think I had it around like 30 feet or something.
Roughly 40 feet,
So
30 to 40 feet, yeah.
I just want to make that point. If you look at the old renderings, we were about 6 feet to start the wall from the road surface. And one of his goals really was to push that seating wall and the height to be 30 to 40 feet away from the road. And if you can kind of imagine as you're looking toward the beach, when a 10-foot, well, not 10-foot, what was the height of that, about from 17 feet to 8 feet?
Yeah, roughly 8, yeah.
A 6 to 8 foot wall, sloped wall, but wall 6 feet away from you compared to a 3-foot wall 30 to 40 feet away from you. It kind of gives you your line of sight a lot more of a gentle slope while you're looking toward the beach. So that was one of the goals
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
really wanted
It
to.
softens that was our, really, the main goal is to soften it and to allow also for the residents to use it, right? If you live down in the East End, you could gladly, I don't think the city has plans on putting meters or, we're not going down.
I should hope not,
Yeah, so we are definitely going down the road of,
because we've been there
yeah,
before.
yeah. We're definitely going down the road that this is going to be a good improvement for the residents and to protect the homes.
But if you take a step
And
back.
if we do, we're going to bring you back to help us engineer the meters that, I'm kidding.
As you know, Zach, it took a referendum once, it'll go again if it has to. But I'm sorry if I'm jumping in again. I also think your location of the seating arrangement and moving everything closer to the beach and farther away from Beach Avenue does a lot in moving whatever, if there has to be traffic over that route, pedestrian traffic over that route, it moves it farther away from the houses.
Correct.
So that's a positive step.
And I also think, just stepping back, it's important to note the design criteria behind what we're presenting to you tonight. There's environmental issues and regulations that we have to meet, and there's structural concerns. So basically, the environmental people are directing us to stay within the footprint of the existing seawall, which were pretty much our limitations, and we've accomplished that. They also encourage passive public recreation, which we've included that. And from a structural standpoint, and I don't know if Ian was going to get into it or not, but we did a cost-benefit analysis of future storms, 50-year sea level rise and everything, what elevations were required to protect the city properly. And 15 is pretty much like the sweet spot. I mean, I know the Army Corps is going a little higher. Army Corps
But
does
when
everything
you
plus-
look at their graph, right, if you look at the Army Corps graph, you'll find that above 15,
It kinda
it
tails-
flattens.
Yeah.
So it's actually within the margin of error.
Yeah.
You can make a case for up to 15. Over 15, the case is not
What's
sound.
dear to the design that you're seeing tonight is we tried to check all the environmental boxes, we tried to meet the structural requirements without going overboard, and we tried to give you something pleasant for the residents that just blends in. So we tried to check all the boxes, realizing we're going to have to deal with the residents in this commission here tonight.
The pleasure to deal with the residents.
But, so that's just the history behind why
Yeah.
we're kind of where we're at.
And Lou just had a really good point that in this design, it actually pushes the pedestrian traffic off of Beach Avenue, so they're not walking right in front of the residents' homes as well, so they would be further away from the home.
Well, the walkway still exists on the north side of the street.
Yes.
This would remove the recreational activities
Maybe, maybe. But it's the point.
It's gonna be a
It's a point, absolutely. I think you're really stepping in a very good direction. with
Is there more to your presentation
So-
before I encourage others to,
Would you go over a little bit more of your design in regards to accessibility? And as most of you know, most of our beaches do have a ramp to get up to it, so, which is a good thing, obviously.
but they also have steps. Is there?
So a lot of them on this end of town do have steps left. So obviously, any of the accesses that we have would be the same accesses, so the people who have gone down their street, they're looking at a similar access point at least, but a ramp that meets ADA compatibility, which many of you probably know has it does make it a little bit of a longer.
Yeah.
But I think the design that they came up with, where it kind of bumps into the street a little bit, but also it allows us to have some nice bike racks that I know everybody wants permanently placed in, rather than the racks that the city has to take up and take down, and then everyone gets upset when we take them down, because November, people are still swimming now, so, but I think they came up with a really nice access point at each of the different locations.
And I know you mentioned the stairs. That rendering does not show stairs.
Okay.
We could definitely add the stairs. We were kind of going to the route of just doing the ramp, just to eliminate more hardened structure right on the road there, because the ramp is, not crazy long, but also the stairs would have added another, let's say 30 feet of hardened gray structure, where if you don't have it, you don't have that structure. We could easily add stairs as well.
30 feet total, not 30 feet per staircase.
Yeah, the 30 feet of the staircase, more or less, yeah.
30 feet?
Because you would have to go this way, yeah. You'd have a 5-foot landing, and it's roughly from elevation 5 to.
You're saying you can't just go straight up?
You wouldn't want to go straight up.
Straight up is the way the original thing is done now, and that's never going to be ADA compliant, about how you cut it.
So even our stairs, Tom, would have to have some compliance?
And we could
Like
go
they are
straight up.
today, we couldn't build them like
They'd have to
that?
be parallel to the beachway.
You could go straight up, but you'd have, it's more steps, obviously, than what you have out there right now, because we're raising the height. And then when you have more step, you'd want to have a landing, a resting landing in the middle. So when you account for the landing in the middle and the landing at the top, you would want to go parallel to the wall, and not straight out, because you would be almost in the street, more or less.
Okay.
One thing, while we're talking about those access points, though, is that is the one place that you see on your renderings where there's a railing. And we've all heard about the vinyl railings that exist on some of those ramps today. The city would be interested in hearing any recommendations from the HPC and complying with what you think would work best in those locations. I think that would be one thing that
Yeah.
we'd really want to hear about, is the railing.
Necessary, obviously, at those points of because you have quite a bit of a drop, up more than 30 inches, but, we had envisioned a very nice, sleek, typical beach railing, just a 2 horizontal, to try to blend in with the sky, really, as much as possible.
But a nice white, but what is it, pipe material? that
It's
you're
aluminum,
using?
or
Aluminum?
steel, but most likely aluminum.
Most
yeah.
like silver aluminum, yeah.
Powder coated?
We
Powder-coated aluminum.
usually don't powder coat, but we can, if you guys wanted to color.
Be more maintenance, most
Yeah.
likely.
Can I-
They get
can-
scratched.
Can I assume that this is the presentation that is preparatory to the request for an advisory opinion from the HPC? Is that what we're here
Yes.
doing for tonight? So we're taking, the presentation will be in the nature of requesting an advisory opinion, which the HPC will give the city.
Yes.
And if you want, I can go into more depth on each of the access points if you'd like. So starting by Philadelphia, you have an existing vehicle access onto the beach. We don't plan on changing that. The elevation will raise slightly to 10, but that we're going to design, so obviously we'd allow the vehicle access that's existing. We're providing ADA ramp there as well, so the pedestrian access, you don't need to walk up the vehicle ramp, you would just walk up the ADA ramp to access the promenade. Then at Philadelphia, again, incorporating ADA access. We'll also want to incorporate wrench stations at all these access. Many have them already, so we wouldn't be taking those away, just making them new and potentially reconfiguring them to make more sense with this new design. The bathrooms will be replaced in kind. I know there was a design floating around, that would definitely be part of that application. Moving forward, again, bikes, trash cans, seating, just providing any amenity that is needed when you think of going to the beach. Kicking the sand off your toes, and putting your shoes on. That same layout basically copies itself through every single street end. So what you have, that last rendering I showed you, view 7, that is the typical, obviously it would change to be specific if there's a bathroom. That would change slightly, but that is the look we're going for. And again, then we, this is a big point, right? Army Corps.
I like the way you're pointing at me when you say this.
Good point for you, because I know before this meeting, we talked about it. So the Army Corps had the block wall. We've been talking to the Army Corps for about 6 months now, going back and forth. And we're at a point now where they are willing to change their design from just the concrete block to this more vegetated, more aesthetically pleasing look to make not only the HBC, but SHPO happy with this design. And they are currently watching.
Yeah, well, that's terrific. So they can go talk about their curves again. I think the residents of the 1600 block of Beach Avenue will be very appreciative of your intervention.
We don't have renderings of the old Army Corps, do we?
Not on, no.
It was very much a wall. A little wider than just a block wall, but maybe
Yeah,
6,
it was 8
7,
by 7,
Yeah.
7.5, more or less, concrete block.
But it was a wall, and frankly, to the credit, and I have to say, Ian did a really wonderful job, and Richard Colliers did a great job not only with the design, but working with the Army Corps to really come to something that was acceptable to the Army Corps, because they're looking at it very much as protection. Now they need to get SHPO approval, and they understand that, but they're looking very much at rational protection of that area. And you all know how important it is. We had overtopping of that corner just maybe a month ago.
December, right?
Right. Back in December, we had water coming over that corner. So obviously, this is extremely relevant, and we want to make sure that the Army Corps gets going as quickly as possible. So convincing them to go toward this kind of softer design, it was wonderful that they were willing to work with us at kind of a later hour. So Ian
Yeah,
did a
they
really
were
great job with
really
that.
good. They were very receptive. They wanted to make the city, and
Well, I think they more or less thought that when the public reacted to that wall, it kind of resembled the Maginot Line. I mean, it really was a colossus that everyone just was ill at seeing. So this takes that and makes it as part of a unified project, which
that's
is
another push we wanted also.
you can't have their wall and your wall.
Yeah, we wanted a continuity, and again, going back to the historic promenade down there, it's almost full circle and restores a continuous promenade all the way down Beach Avenue and around the corner even. So that was a big push.
And to do that, too, of course, the Army Corps' dollars and cents, they had to prove that their design was relatively close in expense, which they care about very much, obviously.
Yes.
And the city's going to care about as we apply for funding ourselves, obviously. So that was an important aspect of the project. As much as we'd love it to be just completely designed and completely beautiful, it also has to be something that we can actually afford to build.
I'm guessing this is going to take a little longer than the repaving of Beach Avenue. So any idea about what we all have in mind in terms of timeframes?
I think the Army Corps is August 24.
August, and this is partially funded by federal grants, the BRIC grant, FEMA BRIC grant, so that's definitely going to decide whether or not it's going to be built in 3 phases, or, I know the city.
So this will be.
If we get no funding, this meeting may have been kind of pointless.
This will be federal funds and state funds at all?
Federal and city, the state is.
Because they are obliged to pitch in for the beaches.
Yeah.
You remember that?
They are included in the corner at Wilmington. Basically, it's the city and the county and Fed. So,
Well, that ought to pay for the wall, for the bulkhead, the wooden bulkhead that they haven't removed
we had already
for,
envisioned replacing that bulkhead. So it was good. Again, their support was, they worked with us very well, and they were excited about the project as well. And we have letters of support from DOT.
To give you the feeling of the entire commission, I'd like to just start around the room and see how others are reacting to the whole presentation. John, can I start with you?
Sure, I just have a couple quick comments. Nice work. From my perspective, the most important thing we can do to preserve our history is to preserve the damage from flooding. And with climate change occurring and a couple meter sea level rise, this appears to do it. Secondly, most of those houses along Beach Avenue are at first floor elevation 11 or 12, which means if you add 5 feet 4 of eye height to that, you're still going to be 2.5 to 3 feet above the top of the seawall, meaning you can see over it with parallax in that distance. You'll still be able to see the water from all, at least from my perspective. So nice work.
Thank you.
B, you need to turn your mic on, okay?
It's always so hard to go after John, I've told you this. He's an architect.
Switch seats.
Let me speak from my perspective, though. While we may argue the aesthetics, when I was 12 years old, I stood at the corner of the end of Beach Drive at Poverty Beach, and I saw a house absolutely leveled to the ground. So when you say protect, 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 that is the most important thing. That storm of 1962 would have only been a Cat 2 hurricane, and yet the damage it did was phenomenal. So thank you, job well done.
Thank you.
Lorraine is not actually one of our members, but she's our council liaison, so we always welcome her opinion.
And I watched a few of these presentations, which, again, wonderful job. I take a look at, where we were before and where we are now. I look at our design standards, looking at the bulkhead, looking at the wonderful slope. The way that you designed this has been wonderful, especially when you get to that height, but yet it's such an ease on the eye getting to that height that we needed to get to. And then also working so nicely in the meetings with, the Army Corps. I really, applaud everybody's efforts. I think it's a wonderful job. Thank you.
Corbin?
I like the concept of getting away from steps. We got a ramp. It's easier for most people to climb a ramp than the steps. And having it back off the street is a plus. Shame we can't do it the rest of the way down the promenade. But,
That's next meeting.
up at the Wilmington, that was where we got most of our washover from Sandy. I mean, those condos right there have more sand in them than the beach did. So, I think it's a great design. I wish you could do it in wood, but that's not practical these days. So, and I like having the vegetation between the promenade and the road, which sort of helps set it off. So, good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Corbin. Pip?
Well, I guess the good thing about going last is everybody else has already said it. I think this looks great, and I personally appreciate your attention to detail. I do.
Janice?
Yeah, I agree, and I think it'll really be a welcome addition to be able to walk that far down and to enjoy the views of the ocean and also the beautiful homes there. And the vegetation is a real welcome addition. I can imagine it growing and with the monarchs, and so, yeah, it's a nice job. Thank you.
Jay?
I commend you guys as well that, you had to start with what the Army Corps of Engineers gave you, but I think you've come up with a very clean yet passive design. I love the fact that gentle slope will really lessen the impact of the raising of the wall there. And as a benefit, bringing the beach out to the street. Instead of looking like an overgrown lot, now you're there, hey, man, this is the beach. Great job.
I guess I've said most of what I was going to say, so there's,
Time limit.
I get 5 minutes for public comment. But this is the most substantial improvement and a really well-hoped-for design for a new seawall. I think this makes, it's probably going to make a real, assuming it's built like this, going to make a distinction among walls. You've been working hard at it, and I think we'd be proud to have it. I do want to say it's one thing to put it together, but the city needs to know that that vegetation needs to be maintained. And that will make a big difference between having a seawall that looks like what you've shown us and a seawall that looks like what we have with vegetation growing now. So that's an aspect. It's not your design aspect. It's really a part of the city project. But really good job since our first meeting on the issue.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
I'll go last. You didn't get to go last.
But you'll still have things to say.
I know our chairman, Warren Copeland, has had some communication with the SHPO office, too. And I gather from him that they were just hinting around, is there any way to soften the benches a little bit? And he and I were discussing, would there be any possibility, even though there's cement, to maybe bolt some wood pieces to it so you have a little bit more feeling in that of a woody structure. It'd be a little bit more like the benches we used to have, which had all concrete bases, but wood that you sat on. Is SHPO pushing for that, or
No, that was.
is that a possibility?
Well, actually, if you look at the renderings, we have that on that bench right there, yeah. Let me see if I can get you a good, view 2, proposed conditions.
Uh-huh.
So you can see, we have vertical timber slatting bolted to the bench, exactly as you said it, really, you said it best yourself.
Okay.
We incorporated that to try to, I don't know if we're going to match the timber bulkhead, that's probably the best way to do it, if possible, but we do incorporate a vertical. I know we kind of.
I knew Tom was going to ask that, so we made sure.
He's looking at view number 2.
You too?
Yeah.
Page what?
Yeah.
Tom, were you talking about
page
were you talking
4?
about seating surfaces, or were you talking about the
Seating-
edge?
the seating
See, he's
surfaces.
not talking about
Oh, on the
he's
seating
talking about the seating surfaces
On the
and
bench.
not the vertical
Oh, I thought
side
you were talking about
of
the vertical.
yeah.
So from the
Yeah.
view, it's the vertical. The top, we have cement right now. And we were also, with the vertical, we were thinking it could potentially be stamped concrete, so it would be maintenance-free, but it would look like timber. For the top, again, it's a maintenance issue. If you put timber out there, especially when people are sitting on it and everything, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but it would be a pretty big maintenance.
Okay.
But it's not out of the realm of possibility. That would be a decision if.
Yeah. I think we would all agree that touches like that would help soften it. It does have a kind of hard and modern look compared to all the amazing number of wood buildings, not only behind it, but throughout the whole town.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be getting an advisory opinion in writing from the HPC, so I'm sure there's room to get in suggestions.
Yes, definitely. And that's why we did push for that vertical, so at least from the houses and from the street, it would look, again, like an extension of the timber bulkhead up there, just vertical slatting of wood. We did not put it on the seating surface. Could be an option in theory, but that would be a maintenance issue.
Well,
That's-
other than a maintenance issue also, I would have concerns that the seat wall is actually the height of the seawall. So it is the first thing that is going to break any overtopping.
Yeah.
And if you place lumber on top of it or anything on top of it, it's going to create projectiles
Yeah.
that can then be thrown into the city.
Yeah, and that actually has happened with the old stuff. I've seen stuff launched down beach at a pretty good velocity, so there is an issue with keeping wood in a place where it can be
Yeah.
fired at the,
Excellent point.
But we did talk about stamped concrete and color in the
Yeah.
concrete. Those options exist.
So stamped concrete would certainly be a,
I mean, you could get stamped concrete, you'd swear it was wood. And you can,
Yeah.
it's concrete,
Yeah, we-
so those options still exist.
And also just, even if it doesn't look perfectly like wood, it's just not that gray scale hardened cement look, you
Right.
know?
right.
Yeah, it's definitely an option, yeah.
Well, I'm glad we're not a board that has the opportunity to hold you up in any way, because I know when you're going to all these different boards to get approvals, And I think from what I'm hearing from ours, that, generally, we are very, very pleased, and we understand the necessities of some of the elements that you're using, but also the care that you've done to make it blend as humanly possible. At the same time, we're trying to keep hurricanes out of our downtown and out of Jim's house, too.
Well, that would be helpful since it's been around since 1911. I would make a motion that we issue a favorable advisory opinion on the project as presented, but that the opinion have the detailed points to be made by the HPC to the city.
Okay. Would you like to detail some of those points to add to your motion?
No, because I think it's probably best for a committee to write it, and then, because it's not the kind of thing you want to do at an open table, but no more than what we've mentioned here today, and everybody else is creative. The opinion would be favorable.
Adding some of the things that have been brought up in a resolution?
No, I'd rather be a committee.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I said it. So I'd move to give the project as presented a favorable advisory opinion, with the final opinion be delivered by a committee of the HPC, probably appointed by the chair to do that.
We have a motion. Is there a second to that motion? Oh,
Corbin did,
okay.
yeah, he's fast.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there anybody willing to serve on that committee with Jim?
With me?
Yeah.
Well,
why not?
nobody wants to serve on a committee with me. I'd be happy to serve, and I think it'd be, let Warren decide who the members are, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll drag him back into action and tell him he can pick the members.
He's probably watching.
Okay. Gentlemen,
Tom, one thing we would love guidance on sooner than later is the railings.
yeah.
And I think it's up to us to present to you some of those ideas, and we'll do that.
Okay.
But obviously, would like to get that cleared up sooner than later.
Obviously, we don't want vinyl railings.
Yeah, that won't happen.
We don't want to go through that mistake.
On
But- and-
that, will does anodized finish on them last longer than powder coated?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Anodized, it lasts forever. You can't scratch it or anything.
Yeah.
It stays shiny forever.
You might have just made a decision there.
I think that would be probably the best.
Well,
thing that we-
next thing, Corbin will go to stainless steel.
Yeah. I mean, it has to be strong. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, bicycles will crash into this now and then.
I'd
You don't
say
want
80% of the boardwalks in New Jersey pretty much have anodized aluminum
Yeah,
when you drive around.
okay, all righty.
Okay, well, thank you. And if I could just say one other quick one, just publicly, is how much we appreciated working with the Army Corps and the DEP, with the Glenn and their whole group that were willing to work with the city, which is huge, to be able to really refine this, get this to an acceptable place for both our local HPC and for SHPO. So it's really nice. And thank you, gentlemen. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll look forward to seeing a lot more of you in town.
Oh, yeah. I'll be around. I love it down here. It's a pleasure meeting you.
You too. The next item on our agenda is under old business, Yacht Harbor Marina LLC at 1505 Yacht Avenue, blocks 1160, lots 6, 601, and 7. There's one building there that's non-contributing, and they're proposing 7 new condominium units and site improvements. While they are getting set up, I did notice, as I reviewed my copies today, that the only time we really looked at a plot plan with both buildings on it was in our first review. So I've asked them to give us some copies, because I think we even have some new members since we reviewed that, and it'll give us our orientation over again as to where these buildings are going to sit on the property.
You can have,
Did you get one? Okay, we'll share one.
we can share. Yeah. Yeah, take one, Judy, and then we'll share here.
Okay, sir, if we can have your name and your position with the operation? Yeah, that little button.
Yeah,
Now it's on.
Look for the green.
There we go, look for the green, are we good? Okay. Again, John Halbruner, spelled Halbruner. I'm from the Highland Group and the project architect. For those of you who were here approximately 6 months ago, you may recall that came before you and requested conceptual approval, which you were gracious enough to grant. And since then, the applicant has successfully obtained a site plan approval and is in the process of perfecting that approval. And we're here before you this evening to seek final approval from you so we can hopefully quickly turn this into real construction.
Was that approval from the planning board or zoning board?
That was from the zoning board.
The zoning board, so there were variances requested with it.
Correct.
Okay.
Use variance in most significantly.
Did those variances affect anything that we're looking at tonight? Any changes on the property and the setting?
No, that which was presented to you in conceptual approval remains entirely, completely intact and unchanged.
Okay, okay.
So that what you saw then is that what you see now, with perhaps a little more detail as you would expect to see in what, for your final approval.
Did you say you got site plan approval
Correct,
from the zoning board?
correct.
Okay. They could do that.
Isn't it planning?
So for the benefit of everybody that's here and our memories over 6 months,
Sure.
just if you would highlight the different, the four-room building, the three-unit building, and materials that you're using.
Absolutely. The plan that was passed around to you was taken from the site plan that was recently approved, and you'll notice that there are two buildings, a four-unit building and a three-unit building for a total of 7 townhouse-style units. Each one's approximately 2,300 square feet total. It consists of grade-level garage and then 3 living stories above. The four-unit building is oriented so that it faces the marina and water. The three-unit building is facing the interior courtyard and backs up along parallel with the long leg of Yacht Avenue. I say the long leg because, as I'm sure you know, there's that sharp left-hand turn as you're heading down it. And we're actually formed on that corner. So, Washington Street's up here, Yacht Avenue, you make the hard turn.
Sir, could you take your microphone with you?
Cordless too, look at that. Thank you. Washington Street's up here, right before the bend. Yacht Avenue, make the hard turn down Yacht Avenue. And along the straight leg after that turn, we have the driveway into our site. We have an internal courtyard area with our site that each of the vehicles will access the garage. The three-unit building, which is facing Devil's Reach, the four-unit building, which faces the marina.
You said Washington Street. I think you're thinking of Texas Avenue.
No, actually,
Curves around in front.
Washington Street, which turns around, Texas Avenue will be parallel with the first leg of Yacht
Texas comes
Avenue.
off Pittsburgh.
Texas comes off Pittsburgh.
It's Washington to Texas. But
No,
this is all
street is
Washington.
Washington Street,
Okay,
right before the, what I call the jug handle turn to the left on your way out of town.
okay.
That jug handle happens right here.
Yeah, that's down at that end, right.
So as you turn off the Wawa for orientation, Wawa's right here. So again, a three-unit building and then the four-unit building. Just some 3D renderings quickly. This would be an aerial view. The four-unit building facing the harbor. This would be as if you're hovering above the Barland Tuna Club or so, looking toward the site. And then the three-unit building with Yacht Avenue happening behind us. This would be the view of our site from Yacht Avenue. The simplistic block of a building is the existing one-story building that's on the site. Not that it looks that way in real, but it helps accentuate what we're proposing versus what's there. And again, from a rendering perspective, this is the view that you will see as you're coming down Washington Avenue leaving town. You'll notice that the buildings are strategically placed so that you're not looking at the face of these buildings. You're seeing the open courtyard with the building setting a backdrop. And again, if you're heading up Yacht Avenue down towards Wawa, the oversimplification of the existing building and then our new building, the marina to the right. Is everyone sufficiently oriented? They understand where the buildings are? Any questions on that?
For the benefit of new members, when we first looked at this project, the placement of the buildings to give as much of an open view in that direction was a strong consideration in placement and having the open space and parking, where, it would blend into the buildings reaching up higher. And nothing's changed there.
Correct. The building locations, building size, even the materials which was first presented to you for conceptual remain completely unchanged.
Okay?
In terms of the materials, starting at the bottom, we're going to have a brick base around the entire first story. Some of the traditional detailing with a row lock, true arches on the side where we have arched windows. It's going to be a reddish color brick, Georgetown. We're going to go with a jumbo brick, a little bit larger than your normal size. That's a theme we're going to repeat throughout this because the buildings are relatively large. In an effort to help bring down the scale a little bit, we're using larger proportions of some of the finishes. Jumbo brick, for example, the hardy board siding, the fiber cement siding that encompasses all the walls. We're using a 10-inch reveal on that. That's certainly larger than most times most sidings you would use. But again, it helps kind of bring down this large scale to a smaller level. In a similar vein, thanks in large part to this board's endorsement of the 3-foot deep overhangs we have, we were successfully able to obtain the variance necessary to enable those 3-foot deep overhangs. Again, the primary purpose of which is to try and bring the scale of this large building down to something a little more pedestrian. So we have the brick in the first story. We have horizontal siding on the second story. Roofing as a primary roof is a red cedar. We're going to use the thick cut red cedar. And then accent roofs are a standing seam metal roof. The column enclosures and railing systems and ornamental brackets are all going to be done with PVC and fiberglass by Intex. We have corbels, we have the flying brackets, we have the wood trims, window head trims. All the trim pieces will end up being the Intex materials. Geldwin wood windows, mahogany front doors and garage doors. I'm trying to think if there are any materials that haven't yet hit. I don't think so. I think I covered them. I know one of the questions we had during the conceptual review was, what are the sizes of some of these brackets? And you'll see now there's a variety of sizes. The largest of which is actually almost 50 inches deep and 30 inches wide, going down to some that are small as 16 inches wide and 24 inches deep, depending on where we're placing them on the building. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Let's start around the room the other way.
Okay, I did have a question regarding materials. I believe in the 2021 presentation, the building was to be clad in cedar shake siding.
The 2021 application, which received conceptual approval, was, that design was overhauled, if you will, with what was presented before this board, I'm saying approximately 6 months ago. A lot of the detailing changed from the original 2021 design. For example, and probably most significantly, the roof line and the
Remember
deepness.
that, because we asked you to bring that down, and you've done that.
Both the roof lines, the dormer roof styles, have gone from a doghouse to a shed. Again, the deep overhangs and a lot more of the ornamental detail, the corbels and the brackets and the like have all been added. And we,
I may have to apologize. I may have missed that meeting when you changed it from the cedar shake.
gotcha.
Okay.
Janice?
I really don't have any questions.
Okay. Tim?
I have no questions.
Okay.
Your standing seam, 1-inch seams,
1-inch tall seams, yes, sir.
And at the last 3 or 4 inches traditionally have been folded over to prevent rain or getting up underneath the, will you do that?
I'm sorry, could you explain that again?
Towards the end of the seam, to the down roof end, the seam was mashed over in like a 45-degree angle to,
Oh, just to close off that opening.
Yeah, it's a bend over on the standing seam at the end.
That's just how you'll see on all these different buildings around here.
Yeah,
with standing
absolutely.
seam roofs. It's an inch high, but it does come down to a 45. And it dresses it up nicely rather than just a rough opening. on it.
Understood, yes.
Lorraine?
Accessory buildings on the property, are they, I'm looking at one, and I'm assuming that it is going to be a new structure?
No, there are no new accessory
It's
structures
the
on
old
the
buil-
property.
old
There's an
house.
existing building, there was a shed that's been converted into a marina restroom and changing facility.
Okay,
I'm not,
Non-conforming.
yeah, and honestly, I've not been involved with the design of that, and I don't know the status of that.
okay, so, okay, and then the existing 2-story residential building, that's,
That remains unchanged.
yeah, that's not changing?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
That's right.
okay.
Yeah, that
I
remains
was
totally
concerned with
unchanged.
accessory buildings, but thank you.
B?
I went over today and looked at the area. I did see this house. I was glad to see it in the packet. Are you going to be able to see this as you go out of town around past Fleming Realty?
As you pass the view, you will see. Is here.
Oh, okay.
There's a fair amount, with the microphone. There's a fair amount of fill being introduced to the site, so they actually have a wall. I think the initial application before you, this was the stone wall. We've since changed it to be brick to match that of the building. But you're going to see this wall with a sign, landscaping that runs along the leg of Yacht Avenue before you turn left. And then you'll see the open courtyard with the buildings forming a backdrop. So this is really the view you'll see as you're leaving town on Washington Street.
That's an improvement from what we see now.
John?
Yeah, this is virtually identical to what you presented last May.
Yes.
The only thing I could find was a couple additional brackets, so I have nothing else to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The bricks in the wall going around, are they going to be the same Georgian large bricks as well?
Correct.
Uh-huh, correct. And you gave some of the overall dimensions of the brackets. The wood within the brackets, is that like a 4x4, a real heavy wood?
They're going to be roughly the size of a 4x4. The larger brackets will go up to like 5x5. And believe it or not, there's not going to be wood. It'll all be fiberglass. It'll be hollow fiberglass, perhaps reinforced with aluminum for strength and stiffness where necessary.
Because, lots of times, the brackets go up and they're just way too small for it.
No.
But I really think you've scoped these out and are giving things of the proper size and weight, appearance of weight anyway, and functionality.
Thank you. Yeah, we really tried hard to keep the proportions of everything practical and to the point where, it, again, helps bring down the scale of this building to something pedestrian, is the term I like to use.
I have one question about the bricks. Are they available as a standard, oversized brick? You can get them directly from a brickyard, or do they have to be special made?
I don't know the answer to that. Our contractor is already on board with getting them sourced. I don't know whether they're custom order or whether they're stock.
The reason I ask you this, my father built a Georgian house. He was a stickler for detail, and he had the OG curved brick, but they were all handmade and they weren't fired, so they were very porous.
Gotcha.
So, this is, I'm sure, and over the years, they've gotten better, but,
Yeah.
And I might add that we're using full dimensional brick. This is not a veneer. It's not a thin brick or what we call the lick and stick.
It's not only full dimensional, it's bigger, right? It's bigger.
I'm sorry?
It's not only full dimension, it's bigger.
Yes.
Was a full brick.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, not a veneer, not a slice
Correct.
of brick. As I recall, the only really negative feelings that we had when this came around second time was the height, which actually garnered it a vote against it on one of our members, but there's been no change in anything I can see that's substantive from your conceptual approval, so I've no difficulty giving this final approval.
Okay. Anybody else? Could we have?
Question to clear up for the resolution.
Okay.
On the material list on the application, it has brick veneer on the foundation, but you're saying it's going to be a full brick?
Correct. I use the term veneer to suggest that it's not a structural component, but it is a full depth dimensional brick. It's not a thin brick, or it's not an applique.
It's not a face brick, it's a full brick applied over a concrete or a block.
Over a block.
Which makes it the veneer, yeah, okay.
Correct.
Would you like to see that in the resolution?
It will be.
Okay.
So it's a full brick over the concrete?
Correct.
All right.
And I believe if you dive into some of the details, you'll see it's detailed that way.
Is there a motion for final approval that would also include the discussion with the standing seam roof and the full bricks?
I will move that we grant approval to this application with the caveat that the standing seam roof will have a 1-inch seam with a 45-degree bend over at the down roof end, and that the bricks will be a full brick, oversized colonial-style brick, and over the concrete veneers.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
By Jim. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Mr. Testa. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson-Stradick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson? Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you,
Thank
John.
you.
The next item on our agenda is at 1624 New Jersey Avenue, Block 1185, Lot 1002. This is a non-contributing building, and where the discussion is over the front porch and the pavers in the driveway. And representing it is,
Joseph Ross, trading as Joseph Ross, RALLC. I'm an architect licensed in the state of New Jersey.
welcome back.
Thank you. There have been some changes to the HP. May I begin, Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please. I'm sorry.
There have been some changes to the HPC. So in order to refresh the memory, and for those who weren't on the board at the time, we received conceptual approval for this project about a year ago, either in January or February. My memory is not as good as it should be. And the third sheet of the site plan that's marked void at the bottom with a little cloud around it, that will orient you to what we received conceptual approval on. The reason we went for conceptual and not final at that time was because we were going to seek a zoning variance for an accessory structure in the front yard, which was the pool. That was denied by the zoning board. There were some objectors from the neighborhood. So the owner has decided to just eliminate the pool from the scope of work. And we're back with a slightly reconfigured driveway. Everything about the front porch on the front of the house remains identical to what we've received conceptual approval on. So that void will show the pool in the front yard and 2 parking spaces staggered. And the purpose for that staggering was because there was a pine tree that we wanted to retain. And then from there, you can flip to sheet A1 that is not marked void, and take a look at the sketch site plan, and you'll see that we just have the drive come straight in. The 2 parking spots are shown directly in front of the porch addition, and there is no more pool as part of the program. The driveway has a very straightforward configuration at this point. And again, the front elevation, the side elevation, both for the northeast and southwest sides have remained the same. Everything about the construction on the porch on the front of this house remains exactly as presented and approved in conceptual review before. To refresh your memory about the house, it's a pretty nondescript, sort of quasi contemporary structure with some cantilevered front porches. You'll see that on the property report and the front photographs. And we're intending a porch that extends out from that, a total of 16 feet, with a set of steps to access the raised level. The second floor porch, the steps do not extend to that point, and tried to give the porch a little bit of architectural character, make it a little bit more pleasing to the view on the streetscape. So that's the extent of the changes. Again, strictly the driveway configuration. I'm open to any questions that anybody might have about the project.
Let's start around the room, see. Jim, do you have any comments on it?
I would say what I said before in the conceptual review. There is very little that couldn't be done that wouldn't improve this structure. It looks like it was just built without a porch or thought of a porch or anything. I mean, not that putting a porch on New Jersey would give anybody a really terrific view, but what you've added to this is really takes a blob and adds a porch to it, which makes it more attractive. That being the same, I've no objection to it. I would ask that, and maybe this was through and we didn't mention it in conceptual, but is that cultured stone you have on those piers?
We're anticipating a faux stone on the piers, yes. Uh-huh.
Does it not look to you a little inconsistent with the sort of shake roof? So to me, the stone on the bottom looks just incongruous with. I mean, I know our favorite is brick, but there's lots of other stuff one could do. The stone just looks out of place to me, and I would not vote for this in terms of final approval. I just think that as a comment that the cultured stone thing looks inappropriate. So that's.
I think I would mirror Jim's point there. I think you've done a great job trying to make it fit into the neighborhood. And I think we may have brought it up last time that to consider possibly a red brick.
Yeah, I don't recall that, but
Yeah,
I'm not saying
But it's a simple thing, just a red brick would help fit it in better.
I'm certain that my customer would consider that.
When you look at the houses, I mean, except for the corner house, and I think they were both designed and built at about the same time. This one looks like a small copy of the house on the corner of Wilmington and New Jersey.
I believe it was designed by the same person.
Yeah, it would be Jack Tallhammer, if I'm remembering correctly. At least he was the owner. But point is that the change to the brick or stone would look a little better in comparison with the other structures across the street in New Jersey, which are New Jersey Avenue, which are
Right.
turn of the century and.
Yeah, on this side, on this block,
Yeah.
there's nothing to relate to. But,
No,
but you
across the
are
street
correct.
there is.
Across the street.
Yeah.
I think price-wise, it's really right there. You know, it's-
Again, I think if consideration of that was, a condition of approval, it's definitely something my client would consider.
Jake?
Oh, I already finished.
Oh, Janice?
Oh, yeah, I vote for the brick. It looks a lot better. I mean, you've done a nice job of doing something with a challenging sod. But stone, nah.
So I agree, I think you've done a great job, and brick probably would be better than stone.
Other end? Corbin?
I always like brick over stone, unless you're going to use true field stone, which, you know, you got to find a stone.
I guess I would, I would offer that as an alternative, is a true Jersey sandstone veneer. There's only a few places along that stretch of New Jersey that have that, and they're all my projects. It's one of the things that I've kind of pushed my clients to use, is the indigenous materials for South Jersey are brick, some imported slate, and Jersey sandstone. So the projects that you see Jersey sandstone in town, and there's only a few of them, are all my projects. So I would like that as an alternative to the brick. If I can convince my customer to do the gymnastics of getting in a load of sandstone, it requires a lot of work to take rough
What kind of
stone.
shapes, what kind of shapes would you expect that to have? Is it just random? I mean, just your...
Yeah, I mean, it's quarried in random, and then because the shapes are irregular, they have to be sheared across the back to make them fit, and then, have to be chipped to fit each other. So it's a labor intensive, and you have to buy lots more stone than you would if you were using, say, a Wissahickon schist or something out of Pennsylvania. So clients generally aren't keen on going to all the extra effort to do that, but if the board is open to that as an alternative to the brick, I would like to be able to try to convince my clients to use that, because it is an indigenous South Jersey material. Often, even a lot of the older houses, even though what you see often is brick, what they transition to in the last foot and below grade is Jersey fieldstone, sandstone. So I guess I'm holding out as that as an option too.
That's a lot different than what I imagined.
Yeah, I think you're thinking false, faux
Well,
stone.
precast concrete, faux,
Yeah.
faux stone.
If perhaps I can hold out that as an option too.
Well, there's no, I mean, everybody else can comment, but there's no doubt you've earned yourself a condition. The question is just what it'll be.
Well, are you all comfortable, down at this end, since you've already spoken on for brick, are you all comfortable with giving the architect the choice of the two
Yes.
materials?
Yes.
That is a little bit different than what I saw.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Other end?
I'm not hip on the driveway extending the driveway from halfway in all the way in, but that's,
Well, where have they been parking before, right in the front yard?
Yeah, there's actually, they just park in the front yard. There's paver stones that you kind of have to look for, but part of this porch includes a garage under it, so we would need to get access to that. And that was included in the previous application. It just wasn't, it went up so far and stopped for the one parking spot just because I wanted to keep that tree, which now we can keep the tree because we don't have the pressure of maintaining a side yard for the pool. So I can, either way, they were going to go up and access that garage.
Yeah, and you're showing the the number of cars required to get the permission from the zoning board?
Correct, there's 3 parking spots. One is in the garage, and then the 2 are in front of the garage.
Okay, all right.
that being what it is.
Yeah. Anybody at the other end?
I also prefer the brick, but I'd be willing to leave it to the architect's discretion with the sandstone.
John?
Sure, I'm in compliance with what everybody else said. The only questions I have always comes up is the standing seam, so I'm sure you're doing the 1 inch. right?
Correct.
And since there's no other details of the garage door, the railings, or any materials, cut sheets, that's usually what we need to look at for final approval. I just didn't see any. Are there?
Yeah, the materials that I'm proposing are the same ones that I proposed, at the conceptual approval, that we, use a mercanti or a mahogany wood garage door, and there's only one new window, and we're getting rid of an existing glass door. And then...
There's a bunch of railings.
Correct. We were intending that they be a view rail of vinyl and aluminum.
But dimensionally?
Dimensionally, 1 3/4, typically we do 1 3/4 with about a 2 3/4 spacing. We would keep a very traditional
Yep.
look for that. And I'm happy to supply a detail for
Great.
the work review committee on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I unfortunately didn't include it on the drawing. But I'm very familiar with, and the view rail is not like a plexiglass rail. A view rail is just where we have the top rail, as you can see on the front elevation. To get the height that is required, we have a second top rail. And when you're sitting, you can look between the top rails, so it doesn't obscure the view as much.
With this ongoing discussion, I would suggest that we have a resolution that the final plans with these proposed changes could be approved by the review committee. Would that be okay with you, Joe?
Yes.
Whatever your client agrees on with bricks or the sand finish, you know.
We can include that in, yes.
Would anybody like to make a motion?
Oh, if I have to. Move final approval of the application, subject to the conditions of a choice of either brick or sandstone, the folded metal roof, and the view railings to be submitted, all of the conditions to be satisfied by submission of full plans to the review committee.
Second.
Did I do it first?
Second.
Seconded by B. Okay, any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Ms. Bisagno. Ms. Campbell?
Yes,
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm wondering if I could, without imposing on the other applications tonight, just have 2 or 3 minutes to address the board?
Sure.
Thank you, Tom. As some of you know, I've been in the process of retiring for the last couple of years. And for those of you that have been through that, you know that that's more of a process than a single event. And it's really difficult when you love what you do. But I wanted to sum up. I've worked 26 years in this town. I've done my career, I've done 480 projects, and at least half of them have been in and about the city of Cape May. My original business and professional plan was to restrict my practice to domestic architecture and to do it in the city of Cape May. So that was by design. When one does that, as John is an architect and is familiar with, you give up the occasional glitzy project that's institutional or commercial. You tend to work in a less lucrative area of architectural practice. But instead of working on a few projects over a large geographical area, I've had the pleasure of having a big impact in a very small geographical area. And I just wanted to say that it's been my privilege to work in the city of Cape May all these years and acknowledge the professionalism and kind service that Judy and Karen before her and Lisa before her, and all the way back, that the professionals that work for the city of Cape May have provided. I have a few notes. I want to thank all the board members, but in particular, I think Corbin and Tom probably go back all or certainly most of those 26 years. And I want to thank them for their, especially their collegial relationships and their approach to things, their civil discourse, even when we've disagreed, and their occasional willingness to consider an architectural solution that I strongly believe in when it's maybe not obvious to everyone else. So I just wanted to thank the whole board, things like the stone tonight, but especially Tom and Corbin for the many years, and how the complexity of professional relationships actually becoming friendlier and something more special than that. That's what models what public service should be like. And I just want to thank you again. Maybe something will come out of the woodwork and bring you back. Or some client will do something stupid and I'll have to come back. But I don't right now anticipate coming back as a professional in front of this board. Thank you.
Well, Joe, I want to just comment that you're one of the few architects who has always had the information that fit with our standards. And it's been easy working with you, because when you do make a suggestion like you did tonight, it is something that is good for the application. And you've been easy to work with because you didn't have a lot of battles.
Well, my design philosophy is that the architect shouldn't necessarily be the controlling element, that the project turns out best when it's a collegial effort between the architect, the homeowner, the builder, and this board. So I just want to thank you. It's been a privilege.
Those words mean an awful lot.
Well, it
We
would be
don't
easy not to
always
say
get
them.
'em.
Good night, thank you.
Good night.
I had no idea it was that many projects. All right, we are now into new business, and I'd like to invite Fernanda at 729 Washington Street, Block 1079, Lots 6 and 10. This is for a contributing building. It has they're working on a rear addition with windows, repair front facade, repair front facade, and pavers. If you would introduce all yourselves?
Absolutely. Good evening. My name is Maria Fernando. This is my husband, Rohan Fernando, and our wonderful architect, Catherine Lawrence.
Did you get that, Judy? Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Before we turn it over to Catherine to talk through our plans, we wanted to take a minute to first thank you for your time and effort here tonight and for your amazing duty to contributing and keeping Cape May the way it is. It's why we fell in love with this town. And secondly, we wanted to tell you a little bit about why we're here. Rohan and I first came to Cape May in 2015. We decided to have a last-minute baby moon. I was very pregnant with one of our daughters. And we had such a wonderful couple of days at Congress Hall that when our daughter was not even 3 weeks old, we were back down here for a week with his 13-year-old. And it continued until 2017 when we decided we no longer wanted to be visitors. We wanted to be a full part of the community. And it was just a question of what house to buy. We are intense lovers of history and historical homes. In fact, our home in Philadelphia is on 4th Street, a block from Carpenter's Hall, 2 blocks from Independence Hall. It's on the historic registry from 1811 on the foundation of a house from the 1700s. And it's been our love and duty to cherish and care for that house. And so we started looking only at historic homes here in Cape May. And when we found 729 Washington Street, it was probably the 5th or 6th one we had seen that day, and we beat the realtor to the home, sat on the porch, and before we even walked in, Rohan just looked at me and said, "This is our home." And I rarely tell him this, but he was right. And we went in, and since then, our 3 children and us have enjoyed it so much that we now have holidays here. Our 18-year-old wanted to celebrate her birthday here. Our 4-year-old and 6-year-old know most of the firemen by name. In fact, we spend many, many mornings when the fire station is not down. That was a big deal for our 4-year-old. In front of it, spending the time with them, watching it go by, and it's been such a pleasure to us. It is a home that we will pass down to our family, and it's a home that we see ourselves retiring in. So with that, we've planned for some improvements, bearing in mind preserving the home as it is, in all its historic wonder, but also staying within the boundaries that we know you uphold. So thank you. Catherine?
I thought I would start with the booklet, and then we'll turn over to the drawings. And on page 2, I just wanted to sort of describe the work that we're doing. We're going to repair, by the way, the house, I think, is a prominent house on Washington Street with the big giant columns. And so we're going to do some maintenance and repair on the front of the building. and that will match what's there. All of the windows are placement windows now. We're going to put in new wood primed windows. We're going to put in some new siding, and I'll go over that when I go over the drawings, because the project is sort of a twofold project. We're going to build a new kitchen addition in the rear, and the front we're going to repair in kind. We're going to enlarge the kitchen, and we're going to add on the second floor a bedroom. We're going to provide a new screened-in porch in the rear. And we're going to put new wood siding at the rear of the house, and I'll go over that specifically when I talk about the drawings. In addition, we're going to dig up all of the concrete pathways that have been added to over the years around the front of the house and put brick pavers down. So with that said, we can go to page 3, and as you can see, all of the materials that are listed are historically appropriate materials. Other than the roof that is going on in the back, which would be a metal seam roof, and oh yes, it will only be 1-inch seam. And
Angle at the, right. The little angle at the end, right.
If you'd see some of the roofs that have been put on in this, like the current library, which is, first of all, a Billiard's blue, but then again, it seems about like that. So, I mean, you know, it does not fit in, so.
even in my new buildings now that are not historic, I'm like conditioned, 1-inch seams. So in the front, there is some decay on the columns that are wood. We're going to try as best we can to replace or repair first. We're not intending to replace anything on the front of the house other than the concrete walkway and repair any holes. We might have to Bondo that, but we're not intending to replace anything in the front. So everything on the materials list, I do have samples of in the back, but they're period appropriate. If we went to page 9, for me, this was a revelation. This house is located in a no-flood zone. I'm so used to working in Cape May County, and that is like the first thing I ask people is your house in a flood zone? And there's apparently a whole strip down on Washington Street that is high. I mean, it's almost considered a mountain compared to most of the other places in the city and in the county. And as a result, we have a storage area in the back that contains all of the heating and plumbing equipment that is at grade level, and it's perfectly legal, to my surprise. If we go to page 10, which has the city survey, I just want to note that the building was built between 1872 and 1878. And when this survey was done, the roof, which is the same, I believe is the same roof, is an asphaltic shingle roof. And it'll also note that many of the windows have aluminum frame storm windows affixed louvered shutters. I just bring that to your attention because we are going to replace windows in the rear section of the house with wood. So then I would take us to page 13. I think that the photographs tell us what's going on the outside of this house. The front of the house and all around the sides of the house have this, it could be asphalt, clay, it could be clay siding, or it could be asphalt,
Asbestos?
asbestos, yeah.
Asbestos, right.
I'm not allowed to say that word. I've been conditioned by my insurance company not to say that. But in any event, for now, we're intending to keep the front portion of the house with those shingles. Now, we move to the next page, and, which is 14. And we show the right view of the house, and there's like a little side door. When you see the plans, you will note that I'm taking out that side door because we're reconfiguring that whole rear end of the house. Also, if you look at the rear picture, quite frankly, it's a mess back there. We're going to really improve the rear of this house. This is where, right now, the bulk of the attention is going. The shed is coming down, the wooden shower is coming down, the windows are being replaced, the old shingles are coming down, that porch, the screened-in porch is coming down. We're going to build a new porch, and we're going to build a new kitchen addition. It'll be similar in shape, but it's going to look much better. Then, if we go to page 16, I'm just showing you some of the existing conditions. For example, under the roof of the front porch, we would replace or repair any of the beadboard that's there. We're going to keep the brackets. We're going to keep the chimney. But if you look at the picture underneath the front porch, that's where we're going to replace all of this sort of a gobbledygook that was added over the years because this had gone from a single-family house to a boarding house to apartments, and then it went back to a single-family house. So it's really broken up a lot in there. Then I would say that the next thing that we would look at would be these drawings that I have here. And the first sheet, I don't know that you would be so interested, but this was an exercise that we need to perform for the city of Cape May to make sure that we stay within the proper lot coverage and the floor area ratio. But what's most important is that you can see the old shape of the building and what will be the new shape of the building. And you can see where the concrete is, and we're going to put pavers there. Then if we go to A1, which is the next sheet, the first floor plan, we're not doing anything in the front of the house on the first floor. It's in the rear where there's that screened-in porch and the kitchen. I will show you on the next floor plans, but what we're going to do is take that kitchen and expand it into the screened-in porch. Where the screened-in porch is, we're going to make a new screened-in porch. On the second floor, there are several bedrooms. The bedrooms on the rear portion will be reconfigured, and over the new kitchen, which I will see in just a second, we're going to add another bedroom. So why don't we move to sheet A4. So A4 is indicating now, and if you need to rip apart the drawings so that you can compare the existing to the new, but what we're doing in A4 is we're expanding the former kitchen, turning the former kitchen into a family room, making a new kitchen where the screened-in porch is, and then adding a screened-in porch to the back of the house. We have a little patio area where we're adding an exterior shower and a storage area where that broken-down storage area was. And then if you look on the second floor, again, the rear of the house, we're going to add a bedroom on the left-hand side over the kitchen that we have just created. And we're reconfiguring the 2 bedrooms that were in this long L part. One of the things that we are also adding off what will be the master bedroom in the very rear of the house is a balcony. It's a really nice view that you get from the rear of this house. It's a view that I hadn't even noticed. You get to see over the creek. You see over the houses, and you can see the creek that divides West Cape May from Cape May. No work is being performed in the attic. So if we go to page A5, other than repairing some broken shutters, we're keeping the original front door, the 2 doors on either side, the 2 glass doors on either side of the front door are original. Those are remaining as is. The whole front is going to remain as is, other than repair. The proposed right elevation, this is where it got tricky because we're putting in some new windows, we're adding the balcony. So what we're proposing is to remove all of the asbestos shingles from the rear portion of the house all the way to the back. But phase 2, which would be the front of the house, is going to remain untouched. So we're going to have a transition point between wood and the shingles. We're also proposing to put in, there's a variety of, the front of the house, the original portion of the house has brick foundation walls. As we get closer to the rear and different additions that were added over time, there's like this cinder block walls. We're proposing to put brick all the way around. So if we go to the next page, this is where the majority of the work is happening, or that you can see on the outside. If we look at the bottom elevation, which says left elevation, you can see the 2-story addition, the second floor that we're putting on over what had been the porch. You can see a group of windows that is where the kitchen is, and then a screened-in porch. All of these roofs that would be added would be metal seamed roof. And then off to the rear of the house is where this storage and shower and balcony is. If we look at the top, and I think the top elevation, which is the rear elevation, I think it shows you the change in what from the existing conditions. If you remember in this picture, the rear had sort of all of this broken down little areas. We're building a new balcony. We're replacing the windows that were on the second floor with a French door. We're replacing the windows in the attic on the 3rd floor. And you can see where the screened-in porch is. And that's the project in a nutshell. And I'm ready for questions. It's a little bit, a lot going on here, so.
Well, I'm very, very impressed with what you're doing, but I will hold my remarks. John, will you want to?
Sure.
Mulch in?
Yeah, the addition makes sense to me. It's also, I think, done sensitively in terms of its scale, and it's clearly distinguished from the existing building. Actually, three questions. One, the thin brick that you're using on the new foundation parts, I'm assuming you're going to be matching in color and texture the existing brick of the chimney, yes?
Well, the chimney is brick,
Real brick, it's full.
real brick.
Right.
Then below is real brick, but it's been painted.
Ooh,
So I don't think that I would ever be able to really match the fireplace. So I haven't quite figured out, should I paint the brick when we put the veneer brick in? Or I'm open to suggestions about that.
so will you, in phase two, will you be removing the paint from the brick in the foundation?
That sounds like a very good idea.
Yeah, and since there's a natural break, you've set back the addition about a foot, it seems to me that that's a pretty clean break, that if you can get as close as you can to the color of the brick of the fireplace, it's likely that it's the same as what's on the foundation. So that would be my suggestion, anyway.
Okay.
Question number two, I'm sure this is just a drafting error, but on a proposed right elevation, it's interesting because where the asphalt, or I'm sorry, the asbestos, I've been trained not to use that word as well. The asbestos shingles meet what you're proposing for the siding. There's not a vertical trim board there to separate the two, nor is there on the corner. So I'm assuming that they're there, you just didn't draft them in there as a separation, because that's one plane on the right-hand side of that elevation, right?
Yeah, on the right-hand side, so
Yeah.
we're going to have to create a break.
Yeah, so you put a trim board there, right? Because there's no trim boards. There's trim boards shown on the left elevation, but not on the right. So I'm
Oh.
assuming that was just a drafting error. Right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
Yes.
So that you're going to put them, I'm assuming you are, right? Okay. And then the last thing is railing details. So you always want to see the railing details to make sure that they're the right scale and size. So I know this is a final submission. If the remaining group decide that they want to approve this, I would suggest that we could probably approve the railings with a submission in review.
Okay, we are not replacing the railings in the front of the house, but
But in
we
the
are
back.
putting in the back.
Correct.
We are putting in wood railings,
Right.
2 and 3.
Right.
So-
Just need to see the picket dimension and the spacing, that's all.
Okay,
Right, a detail of the railings, that's all. That's all I have, thanks.
okay.
My question was about the siding, and you answered that for John, so.
And I like all the improvements. I walk by this house, I think, almost every day. I think it would be a great improvement. Thank you.
My one bugaboo on historic homes are fake shutters. Most of the time, they put the shutter next to the trim of the window, and it's neither wide enough nor tall enough to cover the whole window. We're going to put shutters on, they should be working shutters, but if not, I mean, at least they should appear to cover the whole.
These would be timber lane shutters, and they're period appropriate. They're used on historic homes throughout Cape May and everywhere else.
But size matters.
They're going to be half a window,
Yeah.
yes.
Now, will they be operative, or are they going to be fixed?
They're going to be real shutters with the, what do you call it, the little dogs that,
Shutter dogs, yeah.
shutter dogs,
We just
yeah.
actually installed the real shutters in our other homes.
Are you
Sorry,
actually?
are there shutters
the
shown on
Shutters
the
are
addition?
all in the phase two,
front.
aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
If there are any shutters in the front that need to be repaired, we would repair or replace. We're not showing any shutters in the rest of the house.
Right. Okay.
So I'm a little confused. The addition will have no shutters, the new wood windows, but no shutters. The rest of the house is, the front with the asbestos, has got windows with storms and faux shutters on it, but you're not,
They have real
real
shutters.
shutters.
Yeah, they have wood
Are
shutters.
you going to deal with those at all?
Well,
And
if.
part of
if-
your repair and replace thing?
Yeah, we're going to replace one shutter to match. There's one that's broken, the others will repair.
Right, if you look at the photograph, there's on the right-hand elevation, The upper left window is missing a shutter on the side. They're just going to replace that. The rest are already there.
Yep.
I have no,
Okay, Janice?
Yeah, it looks good.
yeah, it looks
Yeah.
great.
I think you've done a great job at tidying the place up, particularly in the rear.
I have to say, I always get concerned when there are additions, even though this one's not big, but they're buckled onto a contributing home. But the views of this, I mean, the facade's really imposing, and you really want to see it. You don't want to see anything really done to harm it. This really tucks in the addition into a place where it's really not all that visible. So it's a nice use of the space, and therefore, it seems to me it's complementary with the house. So I think it's a very nice job.
I'm certainly in agreement with everything I'm hearing. In fact, I think I would personally be inclined to give them final approval.
Want to shape the
One or
conditions.
two mentions of things that we heard in the review. If others are feeling the same way.
That's fine. You didn't circle either one. You weren't here, this is final you're looking for.
Gee whiz. But I think I put it in bold on the front.
See, but the only thing that really counts is the circle on the application.
Okay.
But I would move to give this application final approval. Now, let's just shape any conditions that we want to with respect to that. The first being I'm starting to fail on this now. John, you had mentioned the railings John, would you want to just state the?
Yeah, the first is just that the brick foundation match the existing. Second is that the vertical trim boards on where the new siding. Vertical trim boards where the siding is being done. And then lastly, railing details for review in review committee.
So what he said.
I'll second that.
Although I can't make the motion because we have all 7 people, so.
Joe, would you repeat what you said about the siding?
Yes, adding vertical trim boards to the corners and ends of the siding where it meets the asbestos shingles.
So it's I accept those as part of the motion because John can't make it and
I second.
Janice has seconded.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Ms. Wilson Stridick. Ms. Campbell?
Yes,
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno? Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes?
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Thank you.
Catherine, there's something on this house I've never seen before. On that back dormer, the window is not in the middle of the dormer. It's this eccentric weirdness that's so cool, right? I like it, right? Yeah.
Please with your
What's it like in that space? It must be weird in that space, right?
It is, and but I'll tell you, from the 3rd floor, the view is even
Yeah.
better.
Is it because there's a window seat inside the dormer on the one side of that
No,
space?
it's like you got to watch out tripping your head.
Ah, okay.
Thank you very much.
Peter, you
Thank
really do have a
you.
very unusual house from
do.
1872 that kind of dates it a little bit more like things that were done in the kind of very late colonial period, the old hotels with the long columns going up to it. It's pretty interesting that went up in 1872.
Very
and
interesting,
later.
and it's been
Yeah.
remolded, as Catherine said, over time, but,
Yeah.
but it's,
But we
we're
have
keeping.
this amazing view.
Yeah.
I know.
And looking
And the
up,
front
looking up,
rooms are so
looking up at that ceiling underneath the porch.
I'm in your
beautiful.
neighborhood in Philadelphia, but I'm in that big, old, ugly Hopkinson house.
Oh, the Hawkins, yep. Oh, thank
But I love hiking through that whole area of town. It's just absolutely beautiful.
You know, Joe and Mary
But I
Beth
didn't,
Romano, they live right there, too.
but I didn't
Yeah,
share
and they have a
it
place
here
over at Youth Point. Yeah.
for our baby moon.
Yeah.
We walked so much that I went home that night and had the baby 5 weeks early, so I blame our enthusiasm for Cape May. Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, we are up to KG3 LLC at 1215 Lafayette Street, Block 1061, Lot 87. This is a contributing building. We're talking about relocating the deck and stairs and decking and railing work in the back of, very back of the house. Are you all representing that application? No.
Not here.
They were here before the review committee last week.
Uh-huh.
And we made some suggestions to the builder about going back, talking to his client about, because his client has just bought this house.
Yeah.
And it's a mishmash of stuff. And he wants it, he's got steps that come down this way, he wants to turn them out. And we suggested maybe he wants, the guy is going to do a lot of renovation to start now, and instead of using artificial material, to use wood. So I think this is one that we're going to have to hold off on for.
So it's in front of us now. We need to
No.
dispose of it some way.
So the reason why, we looked at this in review, and the issue is that the back porch, all they really want to do at this point is rotate the stair 90 degrees. The back porch, even though it's a contributing structure, has composite deck and vinyl railings. Therefore, in relocating that stair, they wanted to replicate those same materials. And we didn't feel comfortable approving that in review. And if we did want to approve it as a commission, we thought that we would do so, but only by virtue of it being an anomalous condition where it is the existing materials are there and you can't see it from the street or the side because it's tucked in the back. So that's why we didn't approve it in review committee.
But
How was it left with them as to this application tonight?
That we would bring it before the commission so that issue, no, they're not here.
They're not here to present their application.
So I guess he misunderstood what we were,
He might have misunderstood
but
that.
he might have been going back to talk to his clients too, 'cause
And Bob, we can't even move to table this with a suspension of time, because they're not here to agree to it.
So we really just have to turn it down if they're not here.
I'm not going to vote to approve it, that's for sure.
Or approve it. It's actually a very simple application. The drawings are weak as can be, but it does show staircase is going to move over here, same materials. I would suggest we just go ahead and approve it.
Well, I think, no, we have to have.
Yeah, they're not even here to make representations to us.
I would suggest for technical reasons, so we don't automatically approve it, that it be denied, they be advised why, because they may have that misunderstanding, and that they resubmit this. I would suggest the fee be waived on a resubmittal.
Okay.
So I think the reason why we wanted to bring it before the whole commission is because of that, the trickiness of having a contributing structure. Would we approve composite decking and a vinyl rail if it's hidden in the back and all the ones that are already there, because the addition postdates the original structure, it would match? So that's the condition that we were saying, well, wait a minute, if we'd approve that, we should probably get that on record, that we're only doing that in an anomalous condition for this particular case.
And we want those in the resolution, so
Right.
other people don't bring it up.
Exactly.
They got away with this, and I want to do the same.
Yep.
yeah, we had that situation over on Grant Street, I think it was a couple of months ago.
Okay, is there a
Well,
motion?
I'd move to approve the application, but I'm going to vote against it as a denial.
Okay.
Well, you moved to approve it, I'll second that. Then we'll deny it.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Ms. Campbell?
No.
Mr. Cogswell?
No,
Ms. Bisagno? Ms. Wilson Sturdick?
No,
Mr. Testa?
No.
Mr. Stevenson?
No.
Mr. Carroll?
No. Could I just ask all of you to leave these separately, since this is somebody that's probably going to be coming back? We'll just have a pile over there for them, if that's okay. And I'm going to move into Drake at 17 Broadway, Block 1018, Lot 20, contributing building. And this is nothing to do with the building, but for a detached garage. Gentlemen?
Hi.
Thank you. Who's going to call?
Let me just give Judy a chance here.
Do you want me to contact this applicant?
Would you mind? I'll help you with that if you want. Okay? Okay. Okay, if you could give us your full names?
Sure. Robert Drake. I'm the homeowner. My wife and I made the investment, was back in 2012 in the property. We're excited to be homeowners in such a historic area, and preserving that as well is our goal. To the extent, Judy, I appreciate your help in coordinating the attention to detail that went into the application and the changes we made to comply. My brother, Paul, he's a licensed planner here in the state of New Jersey.
This is Paul.
This is Paul. And the reason today is twofold. The purpose of the garage, as I said, it's a detached, 1.5-story, two-car garage. I do have a classic car that I intend to keep safe and free from the elements and so forth. This is going to be our primary residence, my wife and I. And we're going to be then consolidating 2 homes into one, and we're going to need the storage on that second floor of that garage. So as opposed to not having mementos and pictures and photographs, I can't put them in the crawl space underneath the house. So that's where they'll go.
Okay.
So I'll let Paul introduce himself and give you some of his background.
Sure. How are you doing? Thank you, Board. First, I'll say I'm not an architect, but I am a licensed planner. But I do teach at Rutgers. I teach site planning and urban design at Rutgers University, and I actually teach undergraduates how to work with architects as a planner. I think it's very important that planners and architects work closely together on projects. Fortunately, my brother, he's getting my services for a very low cost. He bought me dinner tonight. But I explained to him that if I was billing him, it wouldn't be for what he's paying me now. But nevertheless,
We'll do a Drake Boys trip, don't worry.
yeah, but this is an exciting project. I think, together, we have the same parents, actually, they're passed on, but we're brothers. And as young children, we vacationed in Cape May our whole lives. My father used to take us to Cape May, and to the extent that we can afford 2 weeks of vacation, we would. If we couldn't afford 2 weeks, we would stay for 1 week, but my parents always made a point to come to Cape May.
The house I bought, he made the investment in, is across the street from the house we stayed at growing up as kids. So Broadway Beach was our,
So we sit on the front porch and talk about the house across the way and right on Broadway, but it's pretty exciting to be part of that, but I get to come down and visit. But it is an exciting house. It is a historic house. It's a contributing house in the historic district. It's 17 South Broadway. On the front page of the application, I'll just go through the drawings if that's okay, showing the location where we're talking about. It's block 1018, lot 20. And if you can see the front picture of the house is a blue hip roof house in the front with a nice front porch. That's 17 South Broadway.
I'm the gardener.
Yeah. And so as you move to the second page, you can see additional views, the relationship of the house to the beach, the relationship of the house to the street, and ultimately the location of the street in general of South Broadway. And then also, if we go to the next page, you can see the location where we're actually proposing to build the garage. It's in the rear of the property. It's an existing concrete area. The concrete is in fairly poor condition. It's cracked. Much of the rest of the driveway on the property is brick. This section is concrete. So what we're proposing to do is essentially remove the concrete and install the two-car garage in that location. If we go to the second page.
The rest of the concrete that's around that stay there, or?
We very likely would take it out, and so we would look to do brick paver in the remainder, and that actually gives us a credit for getting rid of the concrete and replacing it with brick. And so the fourth page is the actual survey of the site done by our surveyor when my brother closed on the property. And you can see in the rear of the property where it's labeled as concrete. So when the property closed, this was the survey. I then enlarged that location, or enlarged the site map to simply show the dimensions of the property, which is approximately 145 feet long by 45 feet wide, the total property, and you can see the location of the proposed garage. It complies with the setbacks. It complies with the requirements in the R2 zone where garages are permitted use. Now, we are required to go to the Board of Adjustment because it's been determined by the zoning officer that we exceed the allowable lot coverage. So we're looking to make some changes and adjustments to that, but obviously that's going to be something we'll have to have a discussion with the zoning board on. And so going to the next,
If Paul, I
Yes.
just tell you, when an application is going to go before the zoning board,
Yes.
we give a conceptual approval or disapproval, so the zoning board has our opinion
Okay.
to guide them in their decision of giving you the variance or not.
that's acceptable. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's great clarification. Yeah, I appreciate that. So we're going to go to page 5, and you can see, for the most part, it's a standard two-car garage. It is 24 by 25 foot wide. You can see it complies with the setbacks. There is an overhang on the garage. And what we're proposing to do is a half-story shed dormer design so that you have on the second elevation, really not the second story, but the second elevation of the garage will be a series of shed dormers, which essentially create the space for primarily storage. And if you can see, my brother is 6'5", so he does require a bit of height to get around. There's indoor staircase and ultimately garage. Now, as you go to page 6, this is a front elevation of the proposed garage. And what you see is two-car base with a standard garage door in one, and then a sliding Pella Reserve traditional bifold door on the other. We'd like to use that type of door because we're looking at this, not only do we use this property in the rear, but the garage will serve a multi-purpose with this type of garage door. We'd like to be able to slide it out and open that entire area in the backyard when we have, family come over and have picnics and the like. What you also see is a balcony on the second floor, and you also see the shed dormer in the rear. And I'll go over the specifics of the trim in a moment, but let's go to page 7, which is really the side or right side elevation of the garage. And you can see again the entrance to the garage from the side is just a simple standard door, white masonry door on that side, on the south side elevation. And you can see also projecting the shed dormer on the roof line. And then also the balcony as well. And then on page 8 is the rear elevation. This is the elevation that will project obviously behind the building. It'll be in the rear. There's no windows. There's no anything. It's a pretty standard back elevation of the building itself. And then sheet 9 is the left side elevation, which again, you see the shed dormer, the balcony, and then a much more detailed treatment of windows on this side of the garage, really to coordinate with the slider doors in the front so that we can open both and have a very open area in the garage itself. And then also you see the picture window. So now I can go through the materials, if that's okay. And that's on the second sheet, the second package. And you can see what we were very clear, we indicated the review is only for the garage itself. There's no proposed improvements on the existing house, it's just for the garage. And what I found was very exciting in, in all the information we did receive, actually the information from Judy was very helpful, was the actual property report. Incredible information that I hadn't been aware. I knew the house was historic, it was contributing, but I didn't realize that the elements of the house and how it was described, was found very interesting, is they actually weren't able to validate, but they think it may have been, like a magazine type house, where a purchase house.
It's called
A kit house.
Kit house.
Yeah. So that was kind of interesting. It was built around 1902, so my brother believes. But it's a very, very open house, a very inviting house.
Wood inside is the original, mahogany, it's tremendous, the staircase.
So as you go through the report, you'll see, again, the house is contributing. Page 8 are just some more of the photographs. Page 9 are the photographs, also similar to that was on the other image. On page, I guess it's 10, you see a very more close-up front view of the house. Very well prepared, very well restored. Presence on the street. The porch is really a dominant feature on the street, and we enjoy, like I said, speaking to people as they walk home from the beach. But in the rear of the property is where the location of the proposed garage is going to go. And then page 11 is also another picture of the concrete in the back. But I wanted to go over the select materials that we're talking about for the garage. What we're proposing on the roof is Heritage Oxford Gray asphalt roof shingles, very common. Right now on the roof of the existing house are asphalt shingles. We are then also looking at on the for the structure itself throughout the hardy beaded cedar mill hardy plank. It'll be at a color, and the best we can match this interlocking blue, which matches very closely to the existing house itself. And then on the upper dormer, the shed dormer, we're proposing to do a straight edge hardy plank shingle design on that area. So and have a sort of contrasting color with the blue and the gray, where the blue is the predominant color and the contrasting shingle would be a gray. And then throughout the structure itself, having the smooth trim boards across all the edges in Arctic white, so very strong white color. I'm not sure it all comes across in the photograph, but it's a Arctic white online, very strong white. And then for the soffit panels, also a vented cedar mill. Also in that Arctic white or a crisp white for the soffit panels. And then when you get into the doors, you can see we're looking at a couple different doors. For the garage door is the reserved traditional bifold patio door, and that's from Pella, and essentially is a slider. It's a 6-bay slider, as shown here with the circled, and it will slide fully open. And then on the side of the left elevation, we would also have slider Pella doors that open either outward or slide fully, to one side. And that would be, again, a traditional Pella door. And then on the balcony itself, there'd be a French door that would open out to the balcony. And that follows along with the Pella, series Pella door. And then the garage door itself is also a standard door. It says here door view, but it's a standard garage door by I forgot who it was. Overhead doors, but it would still fold up like a standard garage door itself. And then here's the masonite door along the left side, swing outwards. And then the windows themselves, we're looking very closely at the Pella Impervia, which is it's not a vinyl, it's more of a fiberglass window that would be very energy efficient as well as double paned, and throughout that. And I think that covers it. I think, that, no, I'm sorry, there's two more slides. And then we have any number of we have some lighting details. Mr. Chairman, you want to ask a question? I know you want me to finish up? Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So we have lighting details with exterior around the whole structure, as well as some prominent lighting around the sconces. And then we're also proposing under soffit lighting around the garage to sort of give a nice accent. And then ultimately the last final thing, and I was listening very intently about the difference between brick and or flint, but we have around the perimeter of the garage itself a stone treatment that we're looking at this silver mine stone treatment. And it's really it is a veneer that would go on, on the stone itself. And then we're proposing a flood vent across the whole structure because the structure is in the floodplain. And I think that pretty much covers at least the application itself, and certainly we welcome any questions.
Before I go around the room, could you describe what variances you are seeking?
Sure. From what I understand, again, I'm a planner, we meet use is permitted, it's in the R2 zone. A garage is a permitted use in the R2 zone. What we exceed are the total lot coverage on the property. And so the total lot coverage, I believe, was 20%. We're in the range of around in the 30s. And so what we're proposing is we're looking at how does that concrete area in the back, how we take that out, we can get credit for that, and then put it back with brick pavers. We'll actually be able to make things better than what they currently are. The setbacks are all met. We don't need any side yard, front yard setbacks or rear yard side variances, so those will all be met. So the only variance we believe we need is for total lot coverage.
Okay. Has there been any discussion of whether or not, from maybe the zoning officer, is there running water to this building?
There is no running water, no.
Okay.
No.
One thing that we do watch out in town is additions like this that obviously are going to become pretty quickly more living space or separate living space.
Sure.
I got 6 bedrooms.
But, yeah, and the ordinance is very clear that things like apartments are not a permitted use in the zone. So we're not proposing an apartment in any
It's
capacity.
like you're giving this antique car the happiest setting you could ever find it.
Yeah. That's for sure.
69 Pontiac GTO, fully restored.
It's a big car.
It's 17 and a half long.
Yeah. Okay, let's go around the room. Jim, you want to?
Well, I thought you would say that. I have to say, I'm really not impressed and by the mixed nature of what I see. I mean, a 2-car garage to me looks like it should be a 2-car garage with real garage doors and not sliders that open up on the side and windows on the side. To me, it looks like what we're building here is an apartment, and its virtue to me is that it's in the back of the lot. It's not really exposed to the street. But in terms of the overall design, I don't know quite where to start. I don't find it attractive. I think that the mixture of the sliding Pella doors and the traditional garage door to me are very unappealing to the eye. And I think that the left-hand side to me looks like it's going to be spare living space, although not heated and without plumbing. So I find a lot of difficulties with this design. And I don't know how better to express it. It does not look at all attractive to me.
I kind of agree in that, the building was built around 1900. And at that time, I doubt they would have had a garage for an automobile, probably a carriage house at best. And there's no bow to the fact that it's a craftsman-style main structure with this. I mean, this looks like it belongs in Wildwood Crest off of Atlantic Avenue. There's no attempt to make it fit in with the Craftsman House in front of it.
Okay.
Janice?
Yeah, I look at it and I think you have some issues with materials, you have issues with coverage, and you have issues with design. It would be great if, I mean, I think you have the ability to get a garage there, like to get approval for it. The coverage issues, it seems like if you took the concrete up and you put those open pavers that grass could go through, you might be able to get that one passed. But this is a contributing structure, and we have materials that we approve, and I don't see any of them on this design. And this is something an architect would pay attention to. A planner probably wouldn't. So.
Well, a free
I'm
planner would.
I don't want to be harsh. I mean,
No, I understand. I understand. I'm
you
listening.
got called into this by your.
Oh, I'm listening. I'm
There's no
listening.
intention of
All right.
it being
Let him
livable space.
Let him finish. I'm listening. No, we're listening.
Well, right. I wasn't even addressing the livable space. I was addressing the appropriateness of the design and the materials.
Right, okay.
It does not fit in. And you have a contributing structure in a historic district, and our job is to make sure that when new buildings are built or additions are built, that they are compatible. And unfortunately, this isn't.
Sure, I understand. No, thank you.
Good.
So I think I would sort of say some of the same things, that it's kind of incongruous to have these like sliding, to have two different garage doors.
Okay.
And windows. But I kind of missed why you even want that.
It was more intended to be that we could then open that whole area up, and if you're going to have a picnic, family over, that the area
You
becomes
could
more
have
social space.
a recreation area, maybe put a flat screen, but that's it.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I don't know, I mean, if there were a way of achieving that and still, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that kind of purpose, is probably fine. But if there were a way of achieving that while keeping the building design being more compatible with the design of the house, I think that would be better.
What gave us the idea, I can share, is one of the properties on Broadway has a pool house with a barn door that just opens wide open, that is in an L shape, the primary residence, the pool. They open this barn door, the garage faces up Broadway, and they slide that door open. And if that got looked at favorably,
Sorry.
that's what gave
All right,
us
all right.
the idea, the vision.
No,
Well, the idea of it, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with what you want to do, you know, with the idea of having something that could be dual purpose or whatever. But that's like the purpose, right? Like what you're trying to accomplish.
right.
But the design still needs to be more appropriate for the house and more appropriate to match
Let him
the house
finish.
better.
Okay.
Yeah. And the materials, I mean, at this point, they're probably materials we would never approve, but neither here nor there. It's kind of the cart in front of the horse to be talking about the materials before the design.
Can I ask a question? I mean, the hardy plank issue, is that driving an issue about materials?
I don't think so. I don't know what
No?
other people
Okay.
would think, but no, I don't.
Okay.
Actually, since this is a new structure and non-contributing itself, I mean, I'd be more liberal on the materials to be used than I would be about the design.
Okay.
Which I
That's fine.
really just cannot.
No, we're here to obviously have this discussion. I appreciate that, everything.
Perhaps when we get around to our, architect
garage
associate.
door.
Yeah.
Well,
Let him finish. Let him finish.
yeah, I'm going to address the materials. Are you familiar with this book?
Yes, I have reviewed it.
All right. You have a contributing structure in the historic district. You're building a building that is a 21st century building against a 19th century building. The 19 is, in order to have compatibility, it's got to replicate the 19th century design and materials and, you know, so that it looks like it could have been there as a carriage house or something like that. But, I mean, I know that my grandmother had a house built in 1904 it did have a two-car garage that was built with it. Of course, cars started coming out by that time. But it was all wood, and it was compatible with the American Foursquare that she had. And this is what I find, that this design is not compatible with the design of your house. And
But how do I change that?
So, well, we have.
Well, see, we're actually going to get a useful suggestion.
Yeah, I know,
when we get to
absolutely,
the
I know,
end
I was
of the
waiting for
table.
that, believe me.
I'm going, well, I would say, you know, you've got to design it as a garage without the sliding doors, the sliding
Yeah,
windows.
that's fine.
Wooden doors, wooden windows. You know, you could do a wooden, actually, a wooden barn door, which opens this way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, typical of a carriage house. That would, you know, be very compatible with what you have.
Sure.
I mean,
That's fine. No, absolutely.
Willing to listen.
Wooden windows, I mean, windows would have to be, should be wood, prime wood, but sliders and are not compatible in that area. So, you know, it's,
We'll certainly look at that, absolutely.
I think,
I'm waiting for John.
my good friend John will have more to say about that
B,
too.
yeah,
Lorraine?
Go ahead. You
Yeah,
go.
yeah, pretty much. No, pretty much what everybody else has said. The design, there really has to be some attention to detail.
Okay.
And matching the front house, something that looks like it would have been there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to actually use the same word Pip used, incongruous. When I looked at the garage, I thought, oh, this is really cool. But it is not compatible with the style of the house. And I'd love to see you
Sure.
achieve your purpose, have the entertainment space you want, but at the same time, make it compatible with the house and that era and that time.
Okay. John?
So I made a list of 6 things. The first 4 are really easy because they're material stuff. So I think you said that the shingles are going to match those that are on the existing house, right? Okay. In color and texture and type, right?
Yes, yes.
Well, even though we can't talk about color, it would be. The faux stone foundation is probably an issue, as I think you heard before.
That we can get rid of.
The white aluminum railing, we would never approve that in this case, particularly, also, if you look at the details of it, the pickets look like they're about 3/4 of an inch with about a 5-inch spacing, which is a very modern configuration, which wouldn't at all match the compatibility of the Craftsman house. And then there's this weird brick panel here on the left side of the, is that intended, or was that just a drafting error? I'm looking at that saying, wow, what's that?
What page was that?
Or is that some sort of a sliding door? I can't quite figure out what that is. On the elevation of the front elevation.
A6, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
A6,
that looks
yes.
like a mahogany panel.
I think that was actually a reflection of what might be in the, yeah, that unfortunately is, the slider is, the way it's shown is opening, and that's almost looking through it, and it show it's opening. That's fine. It's the rear.
Oh, so we're
back.
actually looking in the back of the
Yeah,
garage.
yeah.
Okay, so it's.
I saw that, and I was toiling with, how do I want to change that? As you well know, every change generates another
No,
change.
I know.
And so, but that's, I appreciate you bringing that up. but
I have a
that's all that-
suggestion that might help you.
Sure.
Right? So I think the reason folks are responding to it not being appropriate is because with this period of houses, one would never have had the gable be on the longer elevation. So you put the gable on the 25-foot elevation, 25-foot long, instead of the 24. It's actually even worse because that gable is set back 6 feet. So that means that if you look at the side of this thing, it means you've got an 18-foot wide roof, but the gable is on the 25-foot wide roof, which is completely incompatible and inappropriate for that time frame. However, if you thought of, I just did a little sketch.
Sure.
If you thought of turning the gable the other way and making the ridge line along the 25 feet with the 6-foot setback for where you have that front porch.
Right.
And maybe put a dormer or 2 facing or above each of those, it would start to look like the front elevation
Okay.
of your Foursquare.
Sure.
So it might be, I'm not your designer,
No,
but
no.
just a way to think about how to make it more compatible with the architecture of the period.
Okay.
right?
No, I want to say, all of you, this is terrific. I really appreciate everyone's comments.
And by the way, that begins to potentially address another issue, which I think is tied to it. Generally speaking, the amount of space you need to back up a car and turn it is based upon some pretty standard dimensions in the industry. So for example, if you go into a parking lot, it's a 24-foot aisle. You can get them as narrow as 22, and if you start to angle the parking, you can get it down to 20 or 19. Well, you've only got 19 feet, if I scaled this correctly, between the garage and the car. I don't know how you're going to get a 17.5-foot length vehicle to make that three-point turn and get out of there. So if, in fact, you started to think about redimensioning this garage in the way that I'm talking about,
Right.
then maybe that might give you a little more space to do that.
Sure.
So therefore, you're kind of catching two birds in the same net.
I understand. No, thank you, John.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. And I got to say that with all, everyone's comments, terrific. I can tell you, when you start designing a project, and then you design it again, and then you design it again, there's a point in time where you got to say, fish or cut bait, to use a proverbial classic Cape May. We're certainly willing to take all your comments and make major revisions and accordingly. Once you Google two-car garage, Pinterest and every other, means of email gets sent to you on styles of design that you can then change it to. And even when I said to him, I'd be glad to help you, it was, a labor of love just to say, what do you want and what can we actually envision here? The notion that you'd have a slider versus not, I mean, that's not a deal breaker. The idea is, if it's understood that there'd be a multi-use purpose of the space, that the backyard is a space that's a private space, different from the front yard, which is a public space, different from the front porch, which is a public space. So the rear yard and how that integrates with use by the family of the overall space, including even if you just simply put a standard garage door and opened it, that's certainly something that's not beyond easy changes, fixes on the design. Thank you, John, for your comment on the gable design, and, we'll look to that. I didn't, is everyone okay ultimately with the idea of a balcony? Was there any concern about a balcony? Because I can tell you, as we had this discussion, and my brother uses cliches like I do, happy wife, happy life. His wife, no question, wants the balcony. And so if we go home without a balcony, he's going to be upset, because his wife will be upset, and then I'll probably get fired.
So I don't have a,
Without wanting to cause family havoc, I'm not enamored of a balcony on a garage either, but I suppose if we made a lot of other changes so that it actually looked like some replication of the front of the house, which does have railings, that would be something we could accept. After all this, I'm just concerned we can't give this conceptual approval with all the things that have been said here. I'm wondering if a motion to table with extension is
I
really.
was just going to lead into that discussion.
Yeah, okay.
Do you have a date to go before the zoning board?
I'll send you a bill. Send me a bill, right?
Adjustment?
Not until I can settle this with you folks.
Yes, well, that would be a good idea to, stay with us until we can do that. We can table this so that the time is running. You have to agree that we will extend the time that we have to review.
Absolutely.
To give you a chance to work on these ideas. I'm sympathetic with what you're trying to do.
Well, we
I
want to
noticed-
move in.
Yeah,
And
well, you do have, a covered back porch on the back of the house and a fair amount of space in the backyard. That can certainly be a get-together area, a party area. And, the garage could certainly give you the storage and look a little bit more like a garage.
Sure.
And protection, and, besides the nice car you want to protect, you're going to end up with beach chairs and bicycles and all kinds of other.
All that, yeah, exactly.
They're going to go into a garage.
I mean, part of our, I certainly agree we can extend and keep this active as an application under review, and I'm sure my brother will sign whatever necessary. We know we also have to go to the Board of Adjustment. So we want to at least initiate that application, and if we're able to represent that we've been before the HPC, we don't have an approval yet, but we're working closely with the designs of that. This way, there's clear understanding that this isn't just that it's not conceptually approved, but that we're moving forward in a way that we're taking all your comments and trying to design something that's compatible with the historic structure and you know, the contributing structure.
Well, I called for a vote right now. I'm sure it would be a vote to vote down the application.
Yeah, we don't want
I
that.
would prefer that we table it.
That's fine.
And keep it running, so that you, as you said, you've listened to everything we've had to say, and I'll be very interested to see how many things you could come back with, and I would take a good hard look at, you know, our
So-
standards.
So if I understand it, though, you're not scheduled now with respect to any of the other boards?
No, we're
So, so the suggestion Tom is making with respect to the tabling is that we table and you come back to us and you get the conceptual approval.
Sure.
And then you go
Absolutely.
to the next step.
I was suggesting too, instead of just looking for like a regular two-car garage, try to look for examples of craftsman style, maybe from that period. Then you could see those examples and then modify it to
Sure.
fit your plans.
Okay,
So
absolutely.
at least the outside would be correct and.
No, thanks, Jake.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at the wood windows. Obviously, you know, there are still designs available that are in wood.
I think Pella makes wood windows.
They do. You know, you can get a Pella, you get a gelled window,
John brought up about.
get a Marvin.
Yeah.
It might go into some of these zoning people that, oh, they're putting a balcony up there. Sometime down the road, they're gonna put an apartment up there, even though you say you're not going.
I understand.
But that's, you know, that gets back in there.
I mean, my brother and I will have that discussion, but, and I'm sure to an extent the Board of Adjustment want to preclude that. I mean, they can, the condition of approval will never be an apartment there. It'd be very enforceable.
Well, actually, the things in the world to enforce.
Yeah.
He's going to live there. He's going to live there.
My primary residence.
And
It's
I
a
know.
hardship
Yeah.
if I can't get this done.
And I am not saying anything that you would go against a resolution,
Yeah.
but believe me, as
I understand.
properties change hands and things, you know, an awful lot of things.
No, and
Saturday night
without
projects.
question, you know, we're,
How come there's 10 people coming out of the building?
what's that?
It's happened
Yeah,
all
I think,
Sure.
I think we prefer to get it straight in the beginning,
Yeah.
rather than worry about enforcement catching up with
Oh,
you
absolutely.
on other issues. If you want, I'll make a motion to table with a waiver of the running of the statute.
They agree to the waiver. Okay.
So, all right, so made and seconded.
Thank you.
That's great.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Yeah.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stradik?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson? Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert and Paul.
That's good.
Wish you the best with this, and
Yeah.
Well, we're going to work on it, and we'll be back.
You'll be able to.
I have to confess, I have a 4-car garage. But it was built, when the house was built, so it's only 2 doors as a garage and a nice workshop, but, you know, it does blend with the house. The owner was a Packard dealer in town, so he liked his cars.
Yeah, I built a garage with running water in it because I wanted a slop sink. And I had heat inside because I wanted to keep my trains warm.
We've approved that in our buildings. Things like that, railings,
Don't want to get that Pontiac too cold.
all the glass doors.
Standard engine was what, the three, they went in 3 steps, right? It's a GM big block, 4-barrel. What was Pontiac's big engine?
Well,
The 400? Did they have a 383 before that? 319? $389, I remember that. We were Chevy guys. I started off with a hell of a little 283 in it.
Okay, call back to order if I can.
Excuse me. Good luck.
We have a few more
We'll
things.
see you on the motion.
We do have a few more things that we covered, and I would love to try to get everybody out of here, but no later than 9 o'clock, and I'm sure you would appreciate that. So let me just go ahead and, thanks, Paul. Okay. Okay, a couple things to report on. The HPC draft application board form. I talked with Warren about that today. He confesses that it's in his hands. He really hasn't had a complete chance to review it. As we all know, Warren's going through a very tough ordeal, and I might be sitting here for a while longer. But, we're still wishing him all the best. So he says that is underway.
But I think it's really close to finalization. I mean, and I think his intention was to finish it up and then present it to the full commission.
And he also mentioned that he does have the zoning board of review committee ordinance proposed. He wants to give particular thanks to Jim and John and Bob for all the work that they've done on that. I don't really know what the grant status is, where we are working on grants or not.
We just submitted a grant.
Just submitted the grant, okay. Okay, so we certainly don't have any status on it yet.
No, it's submitted. But it's a great grant. Warren had this idea, and fortunately, John knew a person. That was the best part of the whole thing.
Okay.
So it's a grant for a person to make a movie, short movie, little tiny movies about Cape May, videos. And the person that we spoke to, and that we hope will be able to do this, will get this contract, is a person who has a lot of perspective on stories. So if any of you know, like StoryCorps, how they do StoryCorps. So what he wants to do is to be able to interview people, and then he would put this video together that would be, it could be pictures, old pictures, it could be new pictures, and it could be these videos of people who've lived here a long time and what their, we'll video this guy, right? To say the HPC is great, right? These people are really nice.
We'll get
right?
Joe back.
Really one of our shining examples.
So,
We're going to do advertising.
yeah.
Propaganda.
Yeah, and Joe also, right. So, it's a CLT grant like all the other grants are. And we just have to see if it's awarded. Then it has to, like, we have to do an RFP. Well, we maybe don't have to do an RFP, but I think we do, maybe something, whatever. But anyhow, that's what that grant is.
Okay.
And it also has the potential tied to the new design standards.
Right.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah.
About time we had new book.
Before I go any further, I would like to open our meeting to the public, and I assume we're still running live, Judy, so I'll leave it open for a little bit while we continue our discussion if anybody wants to call in.
I don't think they can, Tom. It's open only
Yes,
to people who are in the
More
room.
people could call in, yeah, they can.
Well, I don't have a phone.
Oh, okay.
We went to live meetings, we're not taking calls.
Oh, okay, sorry.
This is post-Zoom
Okay,
day.
I closed the public portion of the meeting.
Live in the room.
Did we give it the right number of seconds?
Could we go back to that zoning ordinance just a minute?
Yes.
Yeah.
These were handed out tonight in front of you. This is the proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance that we were just talking about. Largely prepared by Jim, I've edited it, and it was understood that you're just getting this tonight, haven't had a chance to look at it. So the idea is for everybody to read it, call with any questions you may have, and we'll really discuss it at the next meeting to further edit it. The purpose of this was to deal with reasons why there may have been reversals of HPC decisions by the zoning board, and this is an attempt to deal with a couple of the issues that need to be clarified and perhaps strengthened, so that when we do appear before the zoning board, it'll be clearer to everybody what the standard is, how they review it, how they consider what we are doing here. So that's what it is, and we'll really discuss it next time.
And presumably, it would be a product of the commission, and then if the commission urges it, it would be submitted to council for an ordinance amendment, which is how the last standard was done. I also wanted to mention, because you didn't, that Jake was part of our committee and was a contributor to our efforts.
Okay. The last thing I have is ongoing education. John?
This ordinance.
Revision to what's already there. I should actually send out a red-lined copy. So
That'd be good.
that would help. Sure. Got it.
So you'll send that to all the members?
Yep.
Okay.
Will this be reviewed by the zoning board before it gets approved?
Well, that's for further discussion. I don't know yet.
Let me just touch on the thing of ongoing education. You had some more sheets here with the save the dates. I'm not sure how many of you I could ever talk into going off for a whole day to do a training thing. And I have to admit that some of the ones I've done over the years go into so many different subjects that I really haven't found them extremely helpful. In more recent years, I've been picking up some of these things like an hour and a half Zoom webinar, which as I read it, I said, this really sounds like a good one.
Yeah.
And I could do it right in my office, and I got a lot out of it. So when I look at over some of these things that come up,
Yeah, sure.
I'll certainly try to send out word if I really think there's some things coming up that are really good.
And Tom, you can still, I should say, John, you can still watch that. I mean, you can still sign up now.
You can.
Post-five, okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to emphasize that it's mandatory that everyone on the committee take 8 hours of training, because I'm about to put in the CLG report for last year, and everyone, I believe, did watch last year's video, so I need confirmation from everyone that you've done this 8-hour training that was proposed by Trina, at the very least.
Well, I will disagree a little bit, because this hour and a half webinar, it does say, this will fulfill the annual training requirements for historic preservation commissioners in certified local government communities. So you
So
don't
that's-
really have to do 8 hours.
No, this apparently will satisfy it, but if everyone could please make sure you take it and let me know. I know Tom did already, so I have his confirmation. Thank you.
I remember when Warren and I went to one of these up in Philadelphia, and we were particularly interested in a long session on windows, because we were really getting into window replacement. And it turned out to be a 3-hour lesson on how to dismantle a historic window and retie the ropes and everything and put it back together. Warren and I had probably each done 50 or more windows ourselves. So I think you got to be a little bit careful about some of the things you sign up for. Are they for the absolute beginning novice, or are they really for people that have been, like a lot of us here, working on historic houses and know an awful lot of the basics? So I will also review things like that and try to give advice out.
Did you do this webinar last week?
Yes, I did.
On Friday, yeah.
Yep. Is there anything else for the public good?
I used to use chain in my windows.
I've switched all my ropes are now chain.
Huh?
And all my ropes are now chain.
Well, in a bed and breakfast, ropes were quieter than chains.
Yeah, not a problem at our place.
But you should use a sash cord, not clothesline cord. There really is a
But
difference.
the durability of
Yeah,
it, of course, yeah.
I have
But I've got a lot of extra chain in case anybody.
one
Needs
window
it.
that I worked on in another house, had a brown twisted, three-ply twisted sash cord. So I took it over to John. He says, I've never seen anything like it. It's got to be over 100 years old.
I thought it was holding.
The problem is getting all the pig iron weights out of the pockets.
Anything else?
Move we adjourn.
Moved, second, all in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks, everybody.